Part 6. Eleanor Larson was reluctant to slave away for the rest of her life, much less rely on Quince Larson. She also felt that this was an opportunity for her. Alexander Scott, the head of Seattle's Scott family, he is a prominent figure. If only I could be Alexander Scott's woman, even if I'm just a mistress. Perhaps with a little luck, I might even be able to rise above everyone else because of that. Seeing his cousin walking toward Alexander Scott, Quince Larson naturally understood her intentions. To be honest, he also hoped that she would succeed. Currently, Yvette Larson was being backed by the Sullivan family of New York. That would be a hindrance to him no matter what. If Eleanor Larson could strike up a relationship with the Scott family of Seattle, he had confidence in convincing the Scott family to support him. As such, he decided to take his leave. After all, he had come only to witness the grand birthday party today. Now that the party was over, there was no point in him staying here anymore. Eleanor Larson walked up to Alexander Scott, placing her hand on his back. Alexander smiled. Now, I can't help but gain a deeper respect for Master Peregrine. Master Peregrine even expected Eleanor Larson to try to hook him up. He had even allowed me to accept her seduction. When the time is right, he will have a use for that. Ellipsis. The peak of Pacific Heights. Yvette Larson leaned on her husband as she gazed at the stars in the sky. I'm so cold. Are you cold? Let's go home then. Finn Taylor regretted his words the moment he said them. His wife was clearly giving him an opportunity. He could have hugged her or even gone further than that, but he had chosen a dead end for himself. Yvette Larson huffed. It was rare for the couple to be so romantic with each other, and she had intended to give Finn Taylor a chance. Why is this man so upright and dumb? Then, why don't you wear my clothes? Finn Taylor tried to salvage the situation. Unfortunately, some things would never return once they were gone. What for? Let's go home. With that, Yvette Larson turned around. Obviously, she was still fuming. To that, Finn Taylor only felt that he had wasted a golden opportunity. He had spent a fortune hosting this grand birthday party, but this was how it had ended up. Oh right, Finn Taylor, be honest. Where did you get the money to rent the peak of Pacific Heights? Along the way home, Yvette Larson felt that something was amiss. It was romantic indeed, but where had that money come from? The money from the late old master. Yvette Larson wanted to say something but held her tongue. She wanted to know how much the old master had actually given her husband at that time, but that sum of money had nothing to do with her. If she were to ask about it, it would make it seem as though she was after his money. Ellipsis. The next day, Yvette Larson returned to the office in a joyful mood. Eleanor Larson was in a similarly joyful mood. The previous night, she had successfully crawled into Alexander Scott's bed. Now, she had full confidence in chasing Yvette out of the company and the Larson family with the Scott family's power. Wow, wow, wow. Someone's bursting with joy. Many people in San Francisco witnessed the grand birthday party last night. Tell me, we're all women. You both had birthdays yesterday on the 20th, but why is there such a huge difference between the two of you? Some people have the chance to celebrate their birthday at the peak of Pacific Heights and be the object of envy of all of San Francisco, while others can only hide at home, eating some tacos. Eleanor Larson took a dig at her cousin. Yvette Larson was in a good mood today and didn't want to get into an argument with such a brainless woman. Why are you all standing at the entrance and not going in? Yvette Larson, how's your investigation going? Have you made any progress? You'd better remember what you told me. Was it simply just a coincidence that they both turned up at the same time? As long as Eleanor Larson mocked her, Quince Larson would always appear right in time to join her. I still have 5 days. Why are you in such a hurry? Yvette Larson huffed and strode into the office. Humph, why is she being so arrogant? I'll see how she explains herself in 5 days' time. Eleanor Larson was upset with her cousin's attitude. She always saw herself as an older sister. As such, she would find a way to ruin Yvette Larson's life. Come to my office. I have something to tell you. With that, Quince Larson headed toward his office. Eleanor Larson clenched her fist, feeling upset inwardly. But for now, she dared not fall out with her cousin. Thus, she could only follow him obediently to his office. When Eleanor Larson entered the office, Quince Larson shut the door. How did it go last night? Did you do it? What? Eleanor Larson acted as though she didn't understand his words. But Quince Larson had already guessed that she would put on an act. There was no way Eleanor Larson would speak so freely about such things. Let's talk about the project. To be honest with you, I was the one who arranged for those rogues to make trouble for Yvette Larson. Eleanor Larson's jaw dropped, and her gaze was filled with disbelief. Brother, don't you know of the consequences of this matter if Grandpa finds out about it? Consequences? You can go ahead and tell him if you dare. Do you think you'll be able to take my place if I fall out of favor? Given Grandpa's personality, he'll eventually hand the Larson family over to me. Even if I'm struck down now, Grandpa will eventually hand the reins of the family over to me. If you dare to expose me now, you'll die an awful death after Grandpa is gone. Quince Larson had purposely said so as a reminder to Eleanor Larson. She had better understand that she still has to listen to me even though she successfully struck up a relationship with the Scott family. Of course, you don't have to worry. I'm not that dumb. I wasn't the one who personally arranged for those rogues. They don't know that I'm the one behind everything. It was Seth Fleming, the Fleming family's young master, who arranged everything. If Yvette Larson doesn't find Seth Fleming within 5 days, she'll have to keep to her promise and leave the company. Of course, I do hope that she can find Seth Fleming. You should know that Seth Fleming's younger brother, Sean Fleming, has had a crush on her for the longest time. What do you think will happen if Yvette Larson goes to the Fleming family to talk it out? Do you think that she'll come back in one piece and untouched? Quince Larson made Eleanor Larson shiver in cold sweat. She was thankful that she hadn't gone so far as to make her cousin an enemy yet. Quince was truly a vicious man. No matter what, Yvette Larson was his cousin, they were all Larsons. Yet, he dared to use such vicious methods to deal with her. Eleanor Larson, I need you to do me a favor. What favor? Now, even Eleanor Larson was slightly afraid of her cousin. Think of a way to let that piece of trash, Finn Taylor, know about the Fleming family stirring up trouble. Quince Larson's plan couldn't get any more vicious. He had asked Eleanor Larson to tell Finn Taylor about the instigator behind the whole matter. What would he do after learning about it? Firstly, he could choose not to let Yvette Larson know about it. Then, she would have to resign from her position. Once she resigned, Quince Larson would tell her that her husband had already known about the instigator behind the whole thing. It was just that he hadn't told her about it. The couple was sure to get into an argument then, and they might even get divorced. What would happen then? It would be going against the late old master's wishes. That way, Yvette Larson's family was sure to be chased out of the Larson family. His grandpa cared most about filial piety and the family's reputation. Of course, Finn Taylor could choose a different route, telling Yvette Larson about the instigator. What would that lead to? She was sure to head to the Fleming family for a discussion to avoid having to resign from the company. This was what Quince Larson hoped to see. Yvette Larson would go as a virgin, but she definitely wouldn't return untouched. She had a husband at home, yet she bedded another man. There was no way his cousin would still have the dignity to live after doing something that humiliated the entire family. Quince Larson would then consult the elders and advise them to cut her family out of the Larson family, driving Yvette Larson into a corner. Ellipsis. Finn Taylor sat at the gate, smoking as he gazed at the street. It had been several days since he started sitting here, but it wasn't because he was bored. He was sitting here because he was looking for someone. To be more accurate, he was looking for a beggar. This beggar had been begging around Finn Taylor's house for 3 years. Ever since he had married into the Larson family, he had seen that beggar every day. But in the past week, that beggar had suddenly disappeared. If it were any ordinary beggar that had gone missing, he wouldn't have spared a thought. However, that beggar was different. When Finn Taylor had been beaten for the first time at his wife's house, he had chosen to escape the Larson family out of frustration. At that time, the beggar had offered him a cigarette and taught him many life principles. It was only then that he realized how difficult it was being a beggar. Perhaps that beggar had only turned to this route because of other difficulties, just like he had become the Larson family's matrilocal son-in-law because he had no other choice. "Oh, what are you looking at, piece of trash?" Just then, Finn Taylor heard a very disconcerting voice beside him. He lifted up his head to see Eleanor Larson. This woman tried to go against him in every way, and that was why he had set up a trap to deal with her. Right now, she probably has full confidence that she's now in a relationship with Alexander Scott. Is she here to boast about herself? Or to declare war? No matter which one it was, Finn Taylor was fearless. "Do you know about your wife making a bet with Quince Larson?" Eleanor Larson snatched the cigarette from Finn Taylor's hand and flung it to the ground, extinguishing it. She hated the smell of cigarettes, especially the cheap kind that Finn Taylor smoked. "A bet? There was some trouble with the project with Xander Corporation. Some rogues have been stirring up trouble, and your wife agreed to resolve the matter within the week. Otherwise, she would resign from her position." Finn Taylor clenched his fist. "It's you again, Quince Larson. Your wife has 5 days left, but she hasn't found the root cause of the problem. What are you trying to tell me? Finn Taylor knew that she was here for a specific reason, but he couldn't guess the reason. I know who's behind those rogues. She finally got to the main point. Tell me, why should I? Finn Taylor retrieved another cigarette and started smoking. He was in no hurry. It was obvious that Eleanor had purposely come here to tell him this secret. I'll wait for you to tell me about it, then I'll see if I can accept this secret. I'll tell you if you say that you're a piece of trash. Finn Taylor's fists were clenched tightly, and the veins on the back of his hands popped up. In the end, that girl's voice and image appeared in his mind. I'm a piece of trash. Who's a piece of trash? Finn Taylor is a piece of trash. Ha 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 ha. Eleanor Larson burst out into laughter and couldn't stop smiling. Tell me who the instigator is. All right, I'll tell you. It's Seth Fleming from San Francisco's Fleming family. You can deal with him if you're capable enough. Then, she left with a wide smile still plastered on her face. She had completed her mission and had even heard Finn Taylor admit that he was a piece of trash. It was a double blessing. Now, she simply had to sit back and relax to watch what would happen. Once Eleanor Larson walked a distance away, Finn Taylor took out his phone and made a call to the 4 guardians. He had 2 missions for them. Firstly, he wanted to know how true the information that Eleanor Larson had told him was. Secondly, he wanted to find out who that beggar was, where he had gone, and why he had gone missing. Upon receiving his order, the 4 guardians set out to work immediately. Right before dinner time, Finn Taylor received news from Logan Yates. Eleanor Larson was right, it was indeed the Fleming family backing those rogues. Finn Taylor pushed open the door to his wife's bedroom and saw her playing video games. He knew that his wife was never one to play video games. Something is amiss. He walked over, yet she didn't chase him out. It seemed like Yvette Larson's impression of her husband had improved drastically because of the birthday party. Are you having fun? I want to kill someone. Yvette Larson yelled out, venting the unhappiness in her heart. Finn Taylor didn't say anything and simply sat by the side, watching her play. Bang! Yvette Larson was shot in the head, and the game ended. She flung the game console onto the bed in a huff. Are you annoyed? Is it because of those rogues who are stirring up trouble for you? Yvette Larson looked at her husband in amazement. How did you know? I've already investigated the matter. It's the Fleming family. The Fleming family, it's them. Why would they do that? We have nothing against them. Who knows? Let's go to the Fleming family's house tomorrow. I'll follow you there. After giving it some thought, Yvette Larson decided not to refuse him. Okay. The next day, Yvette Larson headed to the Fleming family with her husband. Quince Larson had already found out about it when she was still on her way there. Upon learning of it, he was over the moon. He seemed to be able to visualize the scene where Yvette Larson humiliated herself and was chased out of the Larson family. The Fleming family was a top-tier family in San Francisco. Although they weren't in the top 10, they were still leagues ahead of second-tier families like the Larson family. When Finn Taylor and Yvette Larson reached the Fleming family's gate, a few security officers walked up to stop them. From a simple glance, Finn Taylor could tell that the security officers were skilled in martial arts. One had learned Taekwondo, while the other had learned Muay Thai. Who are you? Yvette Larson from the Larson family of San Francisco. Finn Taylor took the initiative to introduce his wife. The security officers seemed to be expecting them. They glanced at each other and gestured for them to enter. When the couple walked forward together, one of the security officers stopped Finn Taylor. Who are you? You can't enter. Her husband, Finn Taylor. PFF'd. The security officers burst out into laughter. Oh, you're the infamous, good-for-nothing matrilocal son-in-law of San Francisco's Larson family. You're famous in San Francisco. I'm sorry for not recognizing you earlier, but you aren't allowed to enter. Even though Finn Taylor had already announced his identity, the security officers refused to let him in. Finn Taylor shrugged. All right then, we'll visit another day. He then turned to leave with his wife. Why are you guys leaving? My subordinates are just incompetent. You could have just called out for me. A man with a cigar in his hand was looking toward the gate from the gardens. Finn Taylor turned back and spotted Seth Fleming. He narrowed his gaze. Based on what Eleanor Larson told me, it was Seth Fleming who stirred up trouble for my wife. Mr. Fleming, this is our 3rd time meeting each other. Aren't you going to invite us in? Although Yvette Larson was fuming inwardly, she put up a pretense and forced a smile out. She had no other choice. After all, the Larson family was no match for the Fleming family. Haha, our fates are quite intertwined. I haven't congratulated you for winning the Best Charitable Organization award yet. Come on in, Ms. Larson. Yvette Larson remained unmoving but glanced at Finn Taylor beside her. Sigh, I'm sorry for the incompetence of my subordinates. Don't mind them, Ms. Larson. Come on in too, Mr. Taylor. Although Yvette Larson wanted to settle the matter, she understood that entering the Fleming family's house was like entering the lion's den. Without her husband by her side, she never would have dared to turn up alone. As the couple walked into the Fleming family's house, Seth Fleming led them into a secluded room. In front of it was an artificial mountain with an artificial pond by the side. It felt relaxing and peaceful sitting here to enjoy a cup of tea. Mr. Fleming, I'm not going to beat around the bush. There have been some people standing in the way of our progress in our project with the Xander Corporation. Mr. Fleming, you're a prominent figure in San Francisco. I don't know any prominent figures, and I've only met you twice. I've come today to ask for your help. Yvette Larson spoke in a very humble tone. She did not expose Seth Fleming as the one instigating those people. She simply said that he had a high position and could settle the matter. Seth Fleming took a sip of tea and furrowed his eyebrows but remained silent. Mr. Fleming, I understand that there are rules. $15,000 shows that. Seth Fleming chuckled. This tea in front of you is panda dung tea. It's one of the rarest kinds of tea and is worth millions per pound. Just that cup in front of you costs at least $1,000. Do you think I'd care about $15,000? Yvette Larson was fuming, but she ate humble pie again. Mr. Fleming, I think you've misunderstood me. $15,000 is just to chase those people away and to convince them not to bully a small family like the Larson family anymore. As for Mr. Fleming, you'll receive $150,000. $150,000, Mr. Fleming, it's $450,000. Yvette Larson had to resist the urge to scold and punch someone. Her limit was $700,000. If it went above that, she wouldn't even be able to make the call. Now, the price was already at $700,000. If it's $450,000, I'd be quite interested. However, money doesn't mean much to me. For a man of my status, money isn't something I'm concerned about anymore. Just then, a man entered the room. Finn Taylor looked over to see Sean Fleming, who had been beaten up by the 4 guardians under his instructions. Sean Fleming's gaze was filled with lust as he looked at Yvette Larson. Ms. Larson, you said you don't like to beat around the bush. I'll be frank with you, I was the one who arranged for all those rogues. It's possible for me to be magnanimous, and I won't even take a single cent from you. However, my younger brother has had a crush on you for a long time. He even waited at your office to pick you up and confess to you. Ms. Larson, how could you be so cruel as to ignore his feelings? Yvette Larson was a little frightened, and she instinctively shrank toward her spouse. I have a husband, Seth Fleming, you'd better not play around. A husband, ha ha ha. Yvette Larson, the entire San Francisco knows that your husband is a good-for-nothing matrilocal son-in-law who hasn't even touched you once in the past 3 years. If you give yourself to my younger brother tonight, I promise you that the Fleming family will definitely support the Larson Corporation, the Larson family, and even you in the future. Nobody in San Francisco will ever dare to rebuke you. Seth Fleming was arrogant. Of course, he had the right to act that way. He was the young master of the Fleming family, a top-tier family in San Francisco. He was the epitome of a rich, handsome, and tall man from the upper class. He was a prince charming in the eyes of many. Sean Fleming strolled toward Yvette Larson and stretched out his hand, wanting to take her hands into his. Finn Taylor gave a gentle tug and pulled his wife half a meter away, leaving Sean Fleming hanging. You piece of trash, you ruined it for me. Sean Fleming's blood was boiling. I had nearly succeeded earlier, but that piece of trash ruined the moment for me. Sean Fleming, I'll leave this matter to you. If you can't even deal with a piece of trash yourself, you'd better not call yourself my younger brother. With that, Seth Fleming turned to leave the room. Whatever followed had nothing to do with him. It all depended on Sean Fleming whether he could get what he wanted. Ellipsis. In the office of the Larson Corporation's CEO. Quince Larson chuckled. Eleanor, are you serious? That useless thing actually admitted that he's a piece of trash. Of course, he admitted to it right in front of me, and I nearly died from laughter. I regret not using my phone to film that moment down. Eleanor Larson smacked her head as she said that, expressing her immense regret. Look at the time. Yvette Larson should be at the Fleming family's house now. Oh yes, they should be there. They should have been chatting for quite some time now. Chatting, ha ha ha, are you sure it's just a discussion? I'm afraid that by now, Quince Larson let out a smug smile. Although his cousin was smiling too, her smile concealed her immense fear. We are all Larsons. This time, Quince Larson has gone too far. Yvette Larson is going to die in my cousin's hands this time. Although it was true that she had gotten together with Alexander Scott, there was a limit to how useful it would be. What if Quince Larson decides to make use of that? Eleanor Larson couldn't help but shudder in fear at the thought of that. Sean Fleming glanced at Finn Taylor and shook his head. This man is ridiculous. In the past, Seth Fleming had thought that the latter had to be a prominent figure. After all, he had been respected at the All-Stars Hotel. However, he had never expected him to be the infamous, good-for-nothing matrilocal son-in-law of San Francisco, Finn Taylor. There was nothing he could do right. It was humiliating for a man to live his life in this way. Yvette Larson, are you a fool, or are you just pretending to be one? Look around you. Where are you? It's the Fleming family's house. You can't blame me since you were the one who threw yourself into my arms. Piece of trash, you'd better scram. If you dare to stand in my way, I'll get someone to break all your bones. Sean Fleming whistled, and immediately, 4 bodyguards appeared. They rubbed their palms while staring at Finn Taylor, their gazes full of hostility. Yvette Larson was afraid and shrank before her husband. She was scared stiff. I never should have been so impulsive to turn up here with only Finn Taylor. I regret even coming to the Fleming family's house. We should have invited Seth Fleming to a restaurant instead. Am I really going to lose my virginity here? Oh, what's going on? Just then, they heard an authoritative voice. Seth Fleming turned and felt immense fear in his heart when he realized that he had a visitor. This person was none other than the true head, Hunter Sullivan. Seth Fleming, don't you think that you've done me dirty by standing in the way of my collaboration with the Larson family? Said Hunter Sullivan as he walked into the room. When he saw Sean Fleming trying to throw himself at Yvette Larson, he smiled. Oh, who's this? I think I saw him on the news. I heard that he was stripped naked and hung on a tree. Seth Fleming, is he part of your family? Sean Fleming's face turned pale, and he didn't dare to respond. Mr. Sullivan, he's my younger brother Sean Fleming. Wow, he's young and handsome. He's even learned human art. The most humiliating thing Sean Fleming had experienced in his entire life was having been stripped naked and hung on a tree that night. His heart was full of grudges due to Hunter Sullivan bringing the matter up. What's wrong with you? How dare you mention that? Beat him up. With Sean Fleming's order, the 4 bodyguards rushed toward Hunter Sullivan. Seth Fleming was so stunned by the sight that he shut his eyes. My brother has gotten himself into trouble, big trouble. Bang, bang, bang. After throwing out only 4 moves, he returned to his original position as though nothing had happened. However, the 4 bodyguards from the Fleming family were crumpled on the ground in front of him. Sean Fleming, kneel down and apologize to Mr. Sullivan. Seth Fleming felt fear like he had never felt before. This is Hunter Sullivan, the head of New York's Sullivan family. Sean Fleming, is your brain dead? How could you do that to him? Unfortunately, Sean Fleming had been pampered growing up. Anyway, he would never get to inherit the company. As such, he had set his life goal on becoming a rich second-generation heir from a young age. This was his family's turf. There was no need to be afraid of anyone. Why, do you think that I'll be afraid of you just because they're here? You'd better know that you're in the Fleming family's house now. Sean Fleming was full of confidence and perfectly fearless. Unfortunately, his words made Seth Fleming sigh even more. What a pity. This is my younger brother. Cripple. The moment Hunter Sullivan finished his sentence, someone walked in. He punched Sean Fleming's calf, and they all heard a loud crack. His bone had been broken. From now on, Sean Fleming was crippled. He would spend the rest of his life in a wheelchair. After completing his task, that man quickly returned to his position outside the room. Discipline was key, and nothing could go wrong. Seth Fleming was shivering in fear, and he quickly knelt in front of Hunter Sullivan. Mr. Sullivan, this is a misunderstanding. Give me a reason not to kill you. I will. The one behind this isn't me but Quince Larson. Hee, do you think that you can cheat me just by conjuring a name up? Quince Larson is from the Larson family. Why would he ruin his own family's business? He's envious of Yvette Larson and is afraid that she would ruffle his position in the Larson family with this project. Hunter Sullivan nodded. He had already found out all he wanted to know. He got up and walked up to Yvette Larson. Ms. Larson, you should have come to look for me when you encountered problems in the project. Yvette Larson had narrowly escaped death. If Hunter Sullivan hadn't turned up in the nick of time, something bad would have happened to her. At that moment, she was still in a trance and couldn't utter a single word. Tomorrow, the Larson Corporation. Seth Fleming, I hope that you'll turn up to denounce Quince Larson. Otherwise, I'm not sure how many of the Fleming family members will still be alive. Hunter Sullivan strode off with 100 people following him. They walked in synchrony as a whole unit. Finn Taylor returned home with his startled wife. Then, he went out. Ellipsis. Starbucks. Finn Taylor took a sip of his latte and shook his head. Hunter Sullivan quickly took the latte away, rushing to get a cup of cappuccino instead. Finn Taylor took another sip before splashing it on the other. There was not a single complaint from Hunter Sullivan before he left to get another cup of coffee. He had made that round trip 3 times before Finn Taylor looked at him. Do you have any complaints? Of course not, Master Peregrine. Do you really have no complaints, or is it not the right time yet? Master Peregrine, I really didn't notice it. None of my subordinates informed me of it. Oh, so you'd only have found out when something happened. Master Peregrine, I'm willing to bear all responsibility. All right, transfer half of the Sullivan family's assets to Yvette Larson. Remember to help her get a Swiss bank card, and don't tell her about it. The Sullivan family of New York. They were one of the most prominent families in the country. Half of their assets could easily bring one into the Forbes list. Even so, Hunter Sullivan dared not refuse Finn Taylor's request. Yes, I'll do it right away. Ellipsis. The next day, Joseph Larson walked into the Larson Corporation. It was the first time in a long while since he had visited the company. It was Quince Larson who had invited him over. He had told his grandpa that there was chaos in the Larson family, something so serious that he didn't even dare to write it out. He had invited his grandpa to the company to announce the matter in front of the entire Larson family. The Larson Corporation's conference room. Joseph Larson sat at the head of the table and glanced at the clock. Quince, what's going on? Half an hour has already passed. Just tell me if you have something you want to say. His grandson had invited him here, saying that something major had happened in the family. It was so serious that it couldn't be written in the books. However, he had been here for more than half an hour, but Quince Larson had yet to say anything. The old master was starting to get a little impatient. Grandpa, the person brother is talking about isn't here yet. Just wait patiently. Eleanor Larson looked out of the door and realized that Yvette Larson hadn't arrived. As such, Joseph Larson cut in. I'll give you another 5 minutes. If you don't say it, I'm going back. He slammed his watch on the table. The wait had made him uncomfortable. Forget it, I'll just say it. Grandpa, I received reliable information that the one who has been in the way of our collaboration with the Xander Corporation is the Fleming family. Yesterday, Yvette Larson went to the Fleming family's house. Her way of solving the matter was to give herself to the Fleming family's young master, Sean Fleming. Hiss. The moment Quince Larson said that, there were sounds of people sucking in their breaths. The Larson family members started whispering amongst themselves. Did Yvette Larson do it with someone else? That can't be. Finn Taylor didn't even touch her once in the past 3 years. Do you think she would let someone else touch her? I can't say. That woman is capable of doing anything to protect her position within the family. I didn't expect that. She looks like quite a pure and innocent girl. I didn't think she would do something like that that tarnishes the family's reputation. That's right, she already has a husband. How could she give her body to another man? Is she a slut? Joseph Larson was fuming, and he slammed his fist onto the table. Quince Larson, you'd better not be lying. You and Yvette Larson can do anything to fight for the position of family head, but she's your cousin. I also won't forgive you if you slander our family. Grandpa, I have had some interactions with Seth Fleming of the Fleming family. He was the one who told me about it, so it can't be wrong. Seth Fleming, who was he? Everyone present knew about him. In reality, not only had the Fleming family's head stopped caring about the company's matters, but the young master Seth Fleming had also taken over the reins a long time ago. He was a prominent figure in San Francisco and a member of the upper class in San Francisco. He bore no grudges against Finn Taylor and Yvette Larson. As such, there was no way he would cook up a lie to denigrate Yvette Larson. Grandpa, that slut did such a thing, yet she's still the deputy CEO of the Larson Corporation. I disagree. The moment Eleanor Larson expressed her displeasure, the other Larson family members quickly followed in her footsteps. Yes, I disagree as well. If others learn that the Larson Corporation's deputy CEO is someone like that, what will they think of the rest of the Larson family? That's right, we shouldn't just kick that slut out of the company. We should also kick her out of the Larson family. Inwardly, Quince Larson felt exceptionally pleased when he saw the entire Larson family coming together, wanting to kick Yvette out. Screech. Just then, the conference door opened. Yvette Larson walked in, and dozens of eyes shot toward her. Behind Yvette Larson was Finn Taylor. Yvette Larson hesitantly took her seat while her husband simply stood behind her without saying a thing. Yuck, do you smell that stench? No sooner had Yvette Larson sat down than Eleanor Larson started to mock her. What do you mean by that, Eleanor Larson? Shouldn't you know best what I'm talking about? Did you get up on the wrong side of the bed today? Why are your words so nasty? Oh, someone did something unspeakable, but she won't let anyone else talk about it. Eleanor Larson rubbed her nose in disgust. Yvette Larson, I heard that you went to settle the problem with the project yesterday. How did it go? Unlike his cousin, Quince Larson wasn't going to start an unnecessary fight. He brought everyone back to the main topic with just one sentence. It's settled. Settled. Who was the one behind it? The Fleming family of San Francisco. The moment Yvette Larson said those words, the entire Larson family came to a realization and looked at her in disdain. Even Joseph Larson frowned. Could it be that Quince Larson spoke the truth? I was blind to have trusted Yvette Larson. I didn't think she was such a person. Oh, the Fleming family. Why did the Fleming family suddenly listen to you and decide not to obstruct our collaboration anymore? How much money did you spend? Nothing. PFF'd. The entire Larson family nearly burst into laughter. Is Yvette Larson crazy? Why is she answering all of Quince Larson's questions so honestly? There's no way she will ever clear her name this time. Yvette Larson, the Fleming family is much more powerful than us. Why would they listen to us when you didn't even give them any benefits? Don't tell me that you used some shameless methods. Why don't you tell all of us here how you did it? Quince Larson, what are you trying to say? Yvette Larson was fuming. She already had a premonition of what her cousins were trying to insinuate. Then, let me ask you a question. Did Sean Fleming try to rape you when you went to the Fleming family's house yesterday? The moment Quince Larson asked this question, all eyes, including Joseph Larson's, were on Yvette Larson. Everyone knew what this question was insinuating. Yes, Yvette Larson didn't want to hide the truth, nor did she want to cook up a story. As such, she replied earnestly. However, this caused the entire Larson family to misunderstand her. Kneel down. Joseph Larson was so infuriated that his mustache flew out of place. He slammed the table, demanding his granddaughter to kneel down. Grandpa, I didn't do anything wrong. Why should I kneel? You didn't do anything wrong. You're married, yet you dare to do something so shameless. Do you really think you did nothing wrong? Grandpa, it's true that Sean Fleming tried to rape me, but he didn't succeed. Quince Larson sneered. Yvette Larson, where did you meet Sean Fleming yesterday? In the Fleming family's house. How many people did you bring there? Only Finn Taylor. Was there anyone in the Fleming family who helped Sean Fleming deal with you guys? Yes, Yvette answered every single one of her cousin's questions. Quince Larson stopped his questioning, he had already made it clear. Yvette Larson, you'd better not try to deny it, it's useless. You headed to the Fleming family's house along with a piece of trash. Going into the Fleming family's house is like going into the lion's den. Could you really have left untouched? Yvette Larson, you've truly disappointed me. I thought that Francis Larson was mature and would be able to raise a mature daughter. I never expected him to raise such a shameless slut. Yvette Larson answered every single one of Quince Larson's questions. They all pointed to the same thing, that Yvette Larson was dirtied by Sean Fleming. You piece of trash, didn't you go with her yesterday? Why can't you even protect your own woman? You let your wife get raped right in front of you. Quince Larson glanced at Finn Taylor in disdain. Yvette Larson, you're such a disappointment. I've decided to. The old master Joseph Larson's blood was boiling. He slammed the today, causing everyone to shut up. He was just about to announce that he would kick Yvette Larson's family out of the Larson family. Right then, the door of the conference room was opened once again. 3 people made their way in. They were Hunter Sullivan, Seth Fleming, and Sean Fleming in a wheelchair. Everyone was stunned. Nobody had any clue about what was going on. Mr. Sullivan. Joseph Larson recognized Hunter Sullivan, who was the head of New York's Sullivan family. The Larson family's old master had never expected him to show up at his company personally. Joseph Larson, I think you're muddle-headed now that you're old. How could you be in such a hurry to draw your own conclusions without investigating the matter? I'm here today to tell you the truth of the matter. The Larson family members had already dragged 2 chairs over for Hunter Sullivan and Seth Fleming. Joseph Larson was full of doubts and didn't know what to say. The whole of San Francisco knows about my collaboration with the Larson family. Why did the Fleming family dare to go against me and provoke me by standing in my way? You were called here by Quince Larson early in the morning to question Yvette Larson. Where was everyone yesterday? Why did Yvette Larson head over alone? Hunter Sullivan had only posed 2 questions, but that was enough to throw the entire Larson family off. Based on Hunter Sullivan's logic, it was true that the whole matter seemed suspicious. What's wrong? Yvette Larson told me that she would resign from her position if she didn't resolve the matter within a week. She was in a hurry to get it done, and that's why she headed there alone. As for why the Fleming family tried to stand in your way, perhaps it's because they were resentful that they didn't get the opportunity to work with your family. Quince Larson was calm and collected, easily answering the questions that Hunter Sullivan had posed. Unfortunately, he had missed out on one point. Seth Fleming was present as well. Oh, Seth Fleming, Quince Larson said that you tried to ruin my project because you were resentful. What do you think about that? He's spouting nonsense. Seth Fleming stood up emotionally and slammed the table. Quince Larson, you were the one who asked me to ruin the project. You even said that you would split the profits from this project with me equally. As for what would have happened to Yvette Larson, that was also your idea. You said that you'd be able to chase her out of the Larson family as long as she was tainted. Then, nobody in the Larson family would dare to fight with you. Seth Fleming's words were like a bolt out of the blue. The entire Larson family was stunned. Quince Larson quavered and tottered backward unsteadily. Eleanor Larson tried to salvage the situation. That's impossible. Brother isn't someone like that. Mr. Fleming, let me ask you, is Yvette Larson tainted? Sean Fleming spat right at Eleanor Larson's face. You fool, don't you see that I've been crippled? Sean Fleming was furious. If he could stand up right now, he would have punched someone instead of simply lashing out at them. Stupid Quince Larson, what kind of stupid idea was that? Great, not only have I been crippled now, but our Fleming family is also in danger. Joseph Larson, I think your mind really is muddled because of your age. If you can't even tell who the true hero and sinner in your family are, I think there's no need to proceed with our project. I'll tell the rest of the families that the Larson family doesn't know right from wrong and that they're not worthy of our collaboration. Hunter Sullivan was a prominent figure, after all, and his words held weight. When Joseph Larson heard that, he got so frightened that he shot up from his seat. It was true that Hunter Sullivan's words could cause the Larson family to lose all of their partners. That would mark the Larson family's end. Mr. Sullivan, these are the Larson family's private matters. I'm willing to punish Quince Larson, but I hope that you won't interfere in that. All right. Hunter Sullivan didn't reply to him and simply turned to leave. Behind him, Seth Fleming followed along while pushing Sean Fleming. Once they all left, Joseph Larson yelled at Quince Larson in a fury. Kneel down. Quince Larson was scared stiff. Not daring to rebuke his grandpa, he simply fell to the ground in front of Joseph Larson with a thud. Grandpa, I was wrong, I was just blinded for a moment. I know that I was wrong. I really do. Joseph Larson shut his eyes and waved his hands. Say no more. From today onward, I'll relieve you from all your duties in the company and stop giving you a monthly allowance for a year. Quince Larson repeatedly kowtowed before his grandpa, expressing his gratitude. Joseph Larson left the office, mentally exhausted. He felt as though he had aged a decade in an instant. Only after Joseph Larson left did his grandson gradually get up. He looked at Yvette Larson with a strange smile on his face. Ha ha ha, Yvette Larson, I bet you didn't expect this. You couldn't even kick me out with this. Grandpa only asked me to leave the company, not the family. Yvette Larson, remember that I'm a man and that you'll always be a woman. No matter what I do, Grandpa will still hand the reins of the family over to me, not you. Just you wait and see. The next time I return to the company, it'll be to kick you out of the family. Quince Larson left the office with a gleeful smile on his face. Although he had been relieved of all his duties, he was still happy. He didn't think that he had lost. In fact, he had managed to test his grandpa's stance through this matter. His grandpa had eventually stood on his side. Yvette Larson had successfully kicked her cousin out of the company. Nonetheless, she wasn't in a good mood at all. Grandpa is getting more biased by the day. Quince tried to scheme against the family and had even put the family and company's reputations at stake. What would Grandpa have done if I had been the one who had done so? But today, Quince Larson had gotten off with a mere slap on the wrist. Grandpa is too biased. Ellipsis. At the same time, Finn Taylor received a message on his phone. It was a text message from Logan Yates. Master Peregrine, I've gotten leads on the beggar. The second young master is involved. Finn Taylor shut his eyes in contemplation. The second young master, Donovan Taylor. He was Finn's younger brother but also his arch-enemy. I can't shake off the feeling that a disaster is about to strike, perhaps a huge disaster. However, I have no regrets. Yvette, I have something on and will be away for a few days. Finn Taylor brought the matter up to Yvette Larson in her office. Initially, Finn Taylor had wanted the four guardians to find the whereabouts of the beggar. If they found out about it, he wanted them to bring him back. But now that his younger brother, Donovan Taylor, was involved, he would have to get involved personally. It was inevitable for the two brothers to eventually fight it out over Peregrine Hall. How long do you need? I'm not sure. Why are you going? I can't tell you. Will you return alive? I'm not sure. Finn Taylor answered his wife's questions honestly. After her interrogation, she very much wanted to punch him to death. In the end, her thoughts were all condensed into a single word: scram. Finn Taylor stood up without feeling any anger and took his leave. For some unknown reason, Yvette Larson's heart tightened the moment her husband walked out of her office. She walked to the window and looked downstairs to see her spouse walking further and further from the office building until he disappeared from her sight. At that moment, she felt an overwhelming sense of loss. It was as though someone had snatched her most precious treasure. Will you return alive? Yvette Larson had no idea why she had asked that question, but she truly felt that she wouldn't be able to live without Finn Taylor anymore. In the past 3 years, she had always thought of him as a burden and hadn't spoken to him very much. But at this moment, she was clear about one thing: she couldn't live without Finn Taylor. Ellipsis. Finn Taylor walked out of the office and into the distance. Finally, he arrived at Hunter Sullivan's house at Pacific Heights. All four guardians were gathered here. Tell me what's going on. Master Peregrine, that beggar's name is Merlin. Merlin, yes, he's a special envoy of Peregrine Hall. Peregrine Hall was an alliance of 5 families. Logan Yates represented the Yates family of Chicago, Hunter Sullivan, the Sullivan family of New York, Alexander Scott, the Scott family of Seattle, and Zachary Kennedy, the Kennedy family of Washington. The most powerful of the 5 was the Taylor family. While each of the 4 guardians' families had their own power, the family of Master Peregrine of Taylor family naturally had their own too. These people were known as special envoys. Merlin was a special envoy of Peregrine Hall. In reality, what the Larson family didn't know was that late old master, Hugo Laurent, had also been a special envoy of Peregrine Hall with the codename White Crane. Why did Merlin land up in this state? Finn Taylor was confused. Since he's a special envoy of Peregrine Hall, there should have been no way he could end up in this state. As a special envoy to Peregrine Hall, Hugo Larson had established the Larson family alone. It has to do with you, Master Peregrine. Me. Finn Taylor got even more confused as he got more details. I didn't even know Merlin. How could I have anything to do with this? The second young master ordered Merlin to assassinate you, but he refused and chose to escape from Peregrine Hall instead. In the end, he was forced to become a beggar. He found out that you became the matrilocal son-in-law of the Larson family and decided to beg around the area. Finn Taylor was taken aback. He had never expected to have something to do with this matter. Where's he now? Why did he go missing? We found out that Swallowtail appeared. He went missing because he tried to save her. Swallowtail, is she also a special envoy of Peregrine Hall? Yes, she has something to do with you too. What? Master Peregrine, you should remember that your mom chased you out and forced you to stay with the servants, saying that it would build your character. You may not know about it, but you almost fell prey to an assassin that very day. It was Swallowtail who saved you, and because of that, she had no choice but to escape from Peregrine Hall. Finn Taylor furrowed his brows. He never imagined that so many things had happened. Donovan's men found Swallowtail, and Merlin went to save her. That's right, Finn Taylor finally understood the full situation. Interesting. How interesting. I never thought that Donovan Taylor had already planned on killing me so early on. Let's go. We have to save Merlin and Swallowtail. The 4 guardians were stunned. Master Peregrine, you're going. This mission was full of perils, and the 4 guardians had never expected Finn Taylor to get involved in it personally. Since they've shown great kindness to me, I have to make the trip down personally. The man currently in front of them was not the Larson family's useless matrilocal son-in-law, but Master Peregrine, Finn Taylor. Since he had already said so, there was nothing the 4 guardians could do. Ellipsis. Along the outskirts of San Francisco lay Lushwood Resort. It was famous for being one of the largest holiday destinations in San Francisco. Of course, there were also some unspeakable dealings going on around here. The boss of the resort, Roland Kleine, was a well-known figure in San Francisco. It could be said that he dipped his fingers in all the business dealings towing the line between legal and illegal. According to the four guardians, Merlin had last shown up here. With the four guardians, Finn Taylor entered Lushwood Resort. The resort was decorated in a vintage style, and walking into the resort was like taking a walk through time. A hotel staff hurried over. "You look very familiar. Which family are you guys from?" "We're not locals. Are we not allowed here?" "Of course, you are. Please come this way." The group followed the staff into the resort. To be honest, this place was more like a farmstay. Finn Taylor had thought that the resort was going to be luxurious because of its name. "What would you like to eat?" "Anything will do. Just bring us some of the best dishes on the menu." Finn wasn't intending on showing his hand immediately. It would be better to get to know his enemy a little more. After all, that would give him an advantage. Very quickly, the staff came over with 7 to 8 dishes. "Oh, has one of the guests left?" The staff was confused. He clearly remembered that there had been 5 people here earlier, but now, there were only 4. He went to the washroom. The person missing was Hunter Sullivan. Finn Taylor had sent him to look for Merlin. The staff didn't think much about it and went off to busy himself with other matters. Before long, Hunter Sullivan returned. He shook his head, indicating that he hadn't found anything. Finn Taylor stood up and headed toward the reception counter. "How much does it cost to rent this whole place for a day?" "You want to rent the whole resort?" "I'm thinking of it. I want to know how much it costs first." "It won't be cheap. It'll cost at least 20,000. What are you planning on doing?" "Place a corpse here and have a memorial service." The moment Finn Taylor said that, the expressions of the receptionists fell. "Sir, please watch your words." The staff seemed to be giving him a gentle reminder, but he pressed the alarm at the same time. He had clearly called for help. "I was just joking. Why are you so serious? Where's your boss, Roland Kleine? I have some business dealings to discuss with him." The staff sized Finn Taylor up. "What business dealings?" Because of Finn Taylor's words, the staff was no longer as friendly to him as he had been earlier. Finn observed the staff. From his muscular body, he could tell that the latter trained hard. "Important business. I want to ask him if he wants to buy a coffin." "Call the boss over," ordered the staff as he stripped off his uniform, revealing a muscular and toned body. "Why don't you look at whose turf this is before trying to stir up trouble?" The staff thought that the man standing in front of him was crazy. How could he be so daring as to make a din here? His boss, Roland Kleine, was possibly the only prominent figure in San Francisco that had reaches across half the city. Did he have a death wish? The staff threw a punch at Finn Taylor. It was full of vitality and strength. Finn Taylor wasn't at all interested in getting into a fight with someone like this. It would only lower his class. Hunter Sullivan immediately rushed forward and grabbed the staff's fist. Crunch. Hunter Sullivan exerted some force, and the bones in the staff's hand shattered. "You're trained." The staff had not expected them to fight back. "Oh, who dares to run wild on my territory?" Just then, someone strolled over. It was Roland Kleine. "Boss, these people are trying to stir up trouble." Roland Kleine waved his hand and shook Finn Taylor's hand. "Who are you? Where are you from? Have I offended you for you to do this?" "Finn Taylor," he spat out with disinterest. Roland Kleine sneered. "Finn Taylor, what an interesting name. There's someone by the same name in San Francisco as well. He's the matrilocal son-in-law of the Larson family. Have you heard of him? You'd better change your name, it's a jinx." Finn Taylor sneered. "If you're talking about Yvette Larson's husband, that'd be me." Roland Kleine was in disbelief. "You're the matrilocal son-in-law of the Larson family?" He scanned Finn Taylor up and down, observing him closely. "So, are you here on behalf of the Larson family?" Finn Taylor shrugged. "If you don't cooperate with me and tell me what I want to know, you can tell the person backing you to come on out." Roland Kleine was stunned. "The person backing me? What does he mean? Even my subordinates don't know about the person backing me, so how could this useless matrilocal son-in-law know about that? What are you talking about? Why do I not understand anything? Get these people out, and let's have a chat one-on-one." Roland Kleine glanced at the 4 guardians. "Will they leave as well?" "Get out." The moment Finn Taylor gave his order, the 4 guardians quickly left the room. Seeing that the piece of trash was being so casual about it, Roland Kleine was not afraid anymore. He waved his hand, gesturing for all his staff to leave the room. Then, only Finn Taylor and Roland Kleine were left in the room. "Where are Swallowtail and Merlin? Are you here for them? How did you know about them? Who are you?" Roland Kleine felt that the situation was incredulous. "These are secrets confined to Peregrine Hall. Isn't the person in front of me the infamous matrilocal son-in-law of the Larson family?" How could he know about this? You don't need to know who I am. You just have to hand Merlin and Swallowtail over to me. That's impossible. Oh, Finn Taylor no longer wasted his breath and simply used his fists. Seeing him using brute force, Roland Kleine nearly burst into laughter. How could such an infamous piece of trash dare to go against me? Does this piece of trash think that I don't have any martial arts skills at all, even though I've pretty much conquered the entire San Francisco? I shall end his life today. But a few seconds later, Roland Kleine could no longer laugh. A slap to the face, a punch to the shoulders, a jab to the temples. With just 3 moves, Finn Taylor let Roland Kleine understand what viciousness meant. At this moment, Roland Kleine wanted nothing more than to kill those people who had spread the rumor that Finn Taylor was just a good-for-nothing matrilocal son-in-law. What nonsense! I'm well trained and can easily win against someone who has a black belt in Taekwondo, but I don't even stand a chance against Finn Taylor. Finn Taylor's every move was calculated and was meant to deal a fatal blow. Roland now felt like he was on the brink of death. I'll hand them over to you. Don't kill me. Roland Kleine trembled in fear. He was truly fearful. He was afraid that Finn Taylor would kill him. Finn Taylor let go and whistled, and the 4 guardians rushed in. Wampus, follow me. The rest of you, stay. Finn Taylor brought Wampus alone, allowing Roland Kleine to lead the way. There was a small bamboo forest behind the main building of Lushwood Resort. Within the forest was a dilapidated shack. Roland Kleine pushed the door open, only to spot 2 people tied up inside. They were Merlin and Swallowtail. Wampus rushed forward to release the ropes. After being released, Swallowtail rushed up to grab Roland Kleine's collar. Where's that girl? Roland Kleine rubbed his nose without uttering a word. Tell me, where is that girl? Roland Kleine replied awkwardly, she's dead. You bast, did you kill her? I didn't want to, but she was stubborn. If she had agreed to my demands, she wouldn't have died. At that moment, Swallowtail exploded and flew toward Roland Kleine. Finn Taylor walked out of the house, and Wampus followed closely behind him. They heard a fight break out within the room, and there were roars of reluctance. Then, everything became peaceful once more. After some time, Merlin and Swallowtail finally emerged. They dropped down on their knees before Finn Taylor. Merlin at your service, Master Peregrine. Swallowtail at your service, Master Peregrine. Finn Taylor waved his hands, gesturing for them to stand up. Tell me what happened. Swallowtail and Merlin got up, telling him all about what had happened from the very beginning. After saving Finn Taylor and leaving, Swallowtail had gotten a job as a full-time nanny for an average family. That family had a daughter whom Swallowtail was close to. Who would have known that Roland Kleine's men would kidnap that girl? Swallowtail had chased after her, only to be kidnapped as well. After learning of Swallowtail's whereabouts, Merlin rushed over too. However, Roland Kleine's reach extended all across San Francisco, and he was too cunning. In the end, Merlin was kidnapped as well. Fortunately, Finn Taylor had saved them both. Merlin, you've been protecting me for the past 3 years, haven't you? Master Peregrine, I'm really ashamed. I really didn't know how powerful you are. Merlin felt a little embarrassed. He had always thought that Finn Taylor was weak and that he had been the one protecting him, but this incident showed him that Finn Taylor wasn't as simple as he thought him to be. However, he wasn't the only one who had been surprised. Although the 4 guardians had heard of Finn Taylor's prowess, his extraordinary martial arts skills and ability to save them so efficiently had stupefied them. As such, the 4 guardians were committed to Finn Taylor. Is Roland Kleine dead? Yes. Do you know who's backing Roland Kleine? Yes. Wait for me here in 3 days' time. I'll use these 3 days to wipe out all of Roland Kleine's power and influence once and for all. Merlin and Swallowtail were on their knees. Yes, Master Peregrine. Finn Taylor stayed in Lushwood Resort for the next few days. Ellipsis. San Francisco, nightfall. When Yvette Larson realized that her husband hadn't returned home, she gritted her teeth and threw his quilt out of the house. Yvette Larson rushed down and kicked her husband's room open. Then, she picked up his quilt and threw it out. After doing so, she slammed the door shut. Even she didn't know why she had done so. There was nothing between her and Finn Taylor except for a title. In fact, he had already told her that he likely wouldn't be back. Nonetheless, her feathers had been ruffled when he didn't return home. Sleep. Yvette Larson decided not to think about Finn Taylor anymore and to go to bed. However, she tossed and turned. It was already 3 o'clock when she glanced at the clock, yet she was still wide awake. Yvette Larson went downstairs once more and threw Finn Taylor's pillow and clothes out as well. Then, she returned to bed. Still, she remained wide awake at 5 in the morning. She once again headed downstairs and tossed her spouse's towel, toothbrush, and toothpaste out of the house. Then, she returned to bed yet again. Finally, at 7 in the morning, she was awoken by Linda James's piercing scream. Yvette hadn't slept a wink throughout the night. She trotted downstairs blearily. Why are all these things outside? Have we been robbed, or did that bast run away? Linda James pointed at the pile of things outside. I thought something happened. I was the one who threw them out. Yvette Larson decided to head upstairs and go back to sleep. She would have to apply for leave for the day. Even if she were to turn up for work, she would probably fall asleep there too. You threw them out. Why did you do that? Oh, I know. Did that bast bully you? Finn Taylor. Finn Taylor, you'd better come out. Yvette Larson clasped her palms together. Mom, I'm begging you to stop screaming. He didn't come home last night. Let me have some sleep, and stop disturbing me. With that, Yvette Larson rushed upstairs. She put on an eye mask and stuffed earplugs into her ears to sleep peacefully. He didn't come home. Linda James was stunned. Finn Taylor didn't return. No, where could Finn Taylor have gone? Why didn't he come back home? If he's not home, who's going to cook our meals? Why is the floor so dirty? Nobody has swept the floor. No, what are we going to eat? What does he mean by this? He married into our family, and we fed him and clothed him. We even gave him a roof over his head, but he just left like that. He's heartless. Even a dog would know to wag its tail at me. Tell me again why we agreed to this marriage in the first place. What is he trying to do this time? Ellipsis. Finn Taylor had spent the night at Lushwood Resort. The night had been eventful. Because of Finn Taylor, all those related to Roland Kleine had disappeared. He didn't bother asking whether Swallowtail and Merlin had killed them all or what they had done to them. After waking, he simply gathered a bouquet of flowers from the hills. Then, he said, "Let's go home." Upon entering central San Francisco, Finn Taylor's powerful and domineering aura suddenly disappeared. He returned to being the Larson family's matrilocal son-in-law and returned home. Looking at his things outside the door, he did not get angry. Instead, he simply picked them up and walked in. Seeing him enter the house, Linda James picked up the broom in anger and struck him with it. "Tell me where you were last night." No sooner had she asked this question than Yvette Larson rushed out of her room. Seeing that Finn Taylor was alive and well, a smile found its way onto her face. Finn Taylor shook the flowers in his hands. "I picked these for you." Yvette Larson blushed, realizing that she shouldn't have rushed out of her room in such a hurry. It made her seem as though she was terribly concerned about him. As such, she returned to her room. Finn Taylor looked toward his wife, who was rushing up the stairs. He had seen everything. Her eye bags were obvious. It was clear that she hadn't slept a wink while worrying about him. "What do you want? Where did you go last night? I'll make you sleep in the toilet tonight if you don't confess. How dare you stay out? Hurry up and cook breakfast. Are you trying to starve us?" Linda James struck Finn Taylor viciously once more before flinging the broom onto the ground. She stood there, huffing. The sight of Finn Taylor annoyed her. "Don't get upset, Finn Taylor, I'm not trying to scold you. You were the one who made a mistake in the first place. Look at what you've been up to recently. Who allowed you to make a decision regarding the volunteering day at the kindergarten? Who allowed you to bring Yvette to the Fleming family's house alone? Most importantly, how could you be so confident as to ask Yvette to settle the accounts with Quince Larson? Don't tell me that you ended up the winner in all three instances. Don't you know that our family would have been ruined if you lost even once? Don't say anything. Hurry up and make our breakfast. You won't be allowed to eat at the dining table from now on. There are rules for matrilocal spouses. How could a matrilocal son-in-law think of becoming the family head? I'm still alive. You're in no place to make any decisions in this family." Finn Taylor shrugged without retorting him. He knew that an argument was sure to break out otherwise. Then, Yvette Larson would be stuck between them. He simply treated it as though he had heard nothing. Finn Taylor placed his things in his room and got busy in the kitchen. Very soon, Yvette Larson came downstairs as well. She leaned against the kitchen door and smiled as she watched her husband working in the kitchen. "You must feel upset being lectured by my parents." Finn Taylor washed a tomato and handed it to Yvette Larson. "No, they were right. I shouldn't have interfered." Yvette Larson took the tomato and took a bite of it. "Can't you be more firm?" "Why, I'm going to continue cooking. You can return to bed." Finn Taylor had noticed that his wife hadn't slept at all throughout the night. The moment Yvette Larson heard those words, she felt a little guilty. "I've already touched up my makeup earlier to hide my dark circles." Did Finn Taylor see through that? However, She was truly sleepy now. All right, call me when you're done. Yvette Larson stealthily returned to her room as though she had committed a crime. After he was done cooking, Finn Taylor brought breakfast up to his wife. Seeing that she was still fast asleep, he placed the tray down softly, not wanting to disturb her. Just as he was about to leave, his gaze fell on a piece of jade on her vanity table. He walked over carefully and picked the piece of jade up. It was a jade piece in a circular shape, carved with a phoenix. It seemed to signify a noble intention and meaning. However, a corner of the phoenix seemed to be broken, and it looked as though the phoenix was crying. This was a curse. In an instant, Finn Taylor flew into a rage. Finn Taylor placed the piece of jade back. He had no idea how Yvette Larson had gotten hold of it, nor did he know who was trying to deal with her. However, he would investigate the matter. Finn Taylor was already fuming. It doesn't matter how others have treated me in the past 3 years, and it doesn't even matter how they've called me a useless martialarts son-in-law. I can tolerate all that, but I will never allow anyone to do anything to my wife. Yvette Larson was Finn Taylor's soft spot. Is breakfast ready? Just then, Yvette Larson woke up. She didn't notice the piece of jade missing from her vanity table. Yes, it's ready. Eat it while it's hot. I'm going out to settle some matters. Again, Yvette Larson glanced at her husband suspiciously. She felt that he had been behaving strangely recently. In the past 3 years, he has seldom gone out of the house. But recently, he has constantly gone out, saying that he has matters to settle. For some reason, I feel that something is amiss. Forget it, it's nothing. Finn Taylor had intended on going out to get the 4 guardians to investigate the piece of jade, but he cancelled his plans upon seeing that his spouse was a little suspicious of him. It's all right, you can go out if you need to. All right then, I'm going out. With that, he headed for the door. Yvette Larson was fuming. She wanted to punch him. I lost sleep over him, but he's going out right after coming home. What is he trying to do? However, why does that matter? We aren't even a real couple. Wait a minute, when you come back later, I'll go out shopping with you. Shopping? Yes, it's Clarine's birthday tomorrow. She invited me, us. Just follow me to get her a present. Yvette Larson nearly gave herself away. Clarine Landon had only invited her, not even mentioning Finn Taylor's name. But thinking about it, she was probably still upset about the violinist from the previous time. Okay, Finn Taylor answered simply before leaving. The Wampus residence, Pacific Heights. Logan Yates, Hunter Sullivan, Alexander Scott, and Zachary Kennedy flipped the piece of jade around repeatedly. In the end, they all shook their heads. Master Peregrine, it doesn't look like it came from around here. Perhaps it's from Southeast Asia. Southeast Asia? Finn Taylor's blood was boiling. Who is it? Who has gone so far as to use witchcraft from Southeast Asia against my wife? Investigate it. That was all Finn Taylor said, but the 4 guardians could feel a murderous aura around him. This was a fear that came from deep within. They had never felt such a cold and murderous aura emanating from Finn Taylor before. If Finn Taylor did find out who had done this to his wife, perhaps he wouldn't hesitate to kill that person. Finn Taylor returned to the Larson family's house with a roasted chicken. Yvette, look at what I've gotten you. Finn Taylor strolled into the house cheerfully, but he was met with Linda James rolling her eyes. Where did you go again? Why didn't you clean up the house? Look at how dirty the house is. What are you looking at? Hurry up and cook lunch. Right at that moment, Yvette Larson walked down from her room. She took the roasted chicken from her husband and rolled her eyes at her mom. People won't die from hunger. If you're really hungry, you can cook your own meals. With that, she brought her husband upstairs. The scene before her evoked fury in Linda James. You useless thing, how could you favor a stranger over your own parents? I slaved through my whole life to raise you. Can't I enjoy my life at this age? I just asked him to cook a meal. What, have I ever shortchanged him of food or clothes? How can you speak to your mom like that? Within the room, Finn Taylor pointed downstairs. Should I cook lunch? Ignore her, she won't die from hunger. Let me show you something. Yvette Larson stretched her hand out. Tada, there were 2 watches in her hands. Couple watches? Yes, I bought them. Do you like it? Finn Taylor felt incredulous. Why is my wife acting like this? Since when have you treated me so well? Why aren't you letting me cook? You're even giving me a couple watch now. What's wrong? Nothing. Tell me, what's wrong? Nothing much. It's about Hunter Sullivan. Can you find a way for me to meet him? Finn Taylor knew that it was impossible for his wife to suddenly treat him so well. She must need a favor from me. That bast, Quince Larson, embezzled money while he was the CEO. He swapped the materials to cheaper but inferior ones for the Xander Corporation project. We won't make it in time even if we divert all of our manpower there now. However, we can't possibly hand over inferior goods to them either. We'll go to jail for doing that. I'm thinking of paying Hunter Sullivan a visit personally, but I'm afraid that I won't even get to meet him if I visit him alone. Finn Taylor had thought that a major problem had cropped up, but it turned out to be such a trivial matter. It's a little difficult. Pacific Heights isn't just any ordinary neighborhood. The last time I got my friend to help me, he was found out and even got punished for it. What shall we do then? Why don't I think of something and bring you to Xander Corporation in a few days' time? You know someone at Xander Corporation too? I know the head of security there. He was my classmate. Finn Taylor made up a story, but Yvette Larson believed him nonetheless. That afternoon, Finn Taylor followed his wife to the shopping mall to buy a gift for Clarine Landon. Have you thought about what to buy? I'm thinking of getting her a bracelet. Finn Taylor nodded. That seems all right. As such, the couple walked toward the goldsmith shop. There were countless kinds of bracelets, golden ones, jade ones, and more. Yvette Larson gravitated toward the jade pieces, and she tried on several jade bracelets. Unfortunately, none of them caught her eye. The sales assistant had been rather helpful in the beginning, but seeing that Yvette Larson had tried on many designs without buying any, her enthusiasm was waning. Yvette Larson strolled around the shop, and suddenly, something caught her eye. She spotted a piece of jade in the corner. It was crystal clear and shimmering under the light. It was definitely worth its price. No sooner had Yvette Larson picked up that piece of jade than a plump woman walked over. She snatched that piece of jade from the former's hands. Not bad, not bad. Wrap it up for me. That plump lady didn't even inquire about its price and simply asked the sales assistant to wrap it up for her. Wait a minute, I had my eye on that first. This was the first piece of jade that had caught Yvette Larson's fancy after such a long time. In the end, that plump lady had snatched it right out of her hands. What was going on? It's yours just because you saw it first. You didn't buy it, so what if I'm buying it now? The plump lady slammed a card down on the counter. Buy card. Seeing how prideful the plump lady was, the sales assistants were naturally over the moon. Yvette Larson had been walking around the shop for more than half an hour. Although she had tried on several pieces, she had not expressed any intention of buying any of them. She was the kind of person that sales assistants hated the most. They felt that Yvette Larson was simply a poor woman who couldn't afford to buy any of their products. All she wanted to do was try them on for fun. In comparison to her, the sales assistants naturally preferred an old-fashioned, rich person like the plump lady, who didn't even hesitate before paying for whatever caught her eye. First come, first served. What do you mean? I saw it first. It was clearly in my hands. How could you snatch it away from me? So what if it was? I'm buying it now. Let's see if they want to sell it to you or to me. The plump lady pointed to some items within the drawer. This, and this. I'll pay for all four by card. The plump lady was smug as she said so. Yvette Larson did a quick mental calculation. Those four items that the plump lady had chosen would add up to $150,000 at the very least. She didn't have so much money. Yvette Larson was at a loss. To be honest, she truly took a liking to that jade piece and felt that it would be a perfect fit for her best friend. However, $150,000 was way over her budget. As such, she backed away and was prepared to leave. What? Don't you have money? I thought you were being backed by someone rich. I didn't expect you to be putting on an act. Finn Taylor had been leaning by the entrance all the while, watching as his wife browsed around. He thought that his spouse's beauty was out of this world. It was as though she was the most beautiful creation in the whole universe. But someone was now trying to destroy this beauty. This irked him. He walked up and grabbed that plump lady. Apologize. She sneered. What, do you want to punch me? I don't think you'd dare to even touch me. I'm Samantha Jensen. Samantha Jensen. The moment the plump lady mentioned her name, Yvette Larson's pupils widened visibly. Even the sales assistants hurriedly bowed before her. Hello, Ms. Jensen. Finn Taylor narrowed his eyes. Samantha Jensen, who's that? The plump lady flung his arm away, chortling. I thought you were somebody for you dared to touch me. How could you not even recognize the name, Samantha Jensen? Yvette Larson tugged at her husband. Forget it, let's go. Although Yvette Larson wanted to let the matter go, her husband refused to do so. She scolded my wife. How can I just let her go? Seeing that her spouse was reluctant to leave, Yvette Larson reminded him in a small voice, Samantha Jensen is Javier Jensen's younger sister. Javier Jensen, Who's that? Finn Taylor was confused. What is she talking about? Samantha Jensen thought that it was forgivable that Finn Taylor hadn't recognized her name earlier. After all, he was a man. He couldn't possibly spend all his time caring about other women. However, this person didn't even recognize her brother, Javier Jensen. He was clearly stirring up trouble. Or perhaps, he was just a country bumpkin. Wow, you're a piece of work. You don't even know my elder brother, Javier Jensen. Are you a country bumpkin, or are you trying to stir up trouble? So what if I don't know your brother? Is your brother Ultraman? Why should I recognize his name? Get lost. I'm wasting my time talking to someone like you. Samantha Jensen truly felt that she was wasting her breath talking to someone like Finn Taylor. Get lost. Apologize to my wife and return her that jade piece. Otherwise, I won't let this matter go. Yvette Larson was stumped by her husband's actions. She had never seen him protect her in this manner. In the past 3 years, he had never rebuked anyone who scolded him, nor had he ever fought back when others hit him. She thought that this was simply his nature. She never expected that he had been tolerating her tantrums all this while. Scram, believe it or not, I'll call my brother right now. I'll see how you'll die then. Finn Taylor scoffed. Hit me. Feel free to hit me. Javier Jensen. Finn Taylor had never even heard of that name. What could happen even if he comes? Hold on. Don't. Yvette Larson stopped Samantha Jensen from making the call, and she pulled her husband to the side. Wait a minute. This Javier Jensen is San Francisco Business Association's vice chairman. He's friends with more than half of the businessmen in San Francisco. It'll make things difficult for the Larson family if we offend him. Although Yvette Larson spoke in a whisper, the plump lady Samantha Jensen had overheard everything. With that, she turned to Finn Taylor and said smugly, "So, you know who my brother is now, don't you? If you apologize to me now, I'll consider letting you off this time." That plump lady, Samantha Jensen, was haughty. She didn't believe that they would dare to boss her around once they realized who her brother was. Finn Taylor wanted to stand up for his wife, but she stopped him, not allowing him to offend the plump lady any further. Hee, you don't have anything to say, do you? I knew that you wouldn't dare to say a thing. I thought that you'd be terribly tough and stubborn, but it seems like this is all you've got. The plump lady was full of herself. You guys have completely irritated me. Kneel down and apologize to me, otherwise, I'll call my brother. Of course, Finn Taylor refused to kneel down before this plump lady. After 5 to 6 minutes of going back and forth, the plump lady eventually made a call. Seeing her affectionately address the person on the other end of the call as brother, Yvette Larson flared up. She jabbed her husband's head. I told you not to be impulsive, didn't I? Look at what you've done. I understand that you want to stand up for me, but you should know your own limits. Do you know that our Larson family will be stuck in a difficult position now that we've offended Javier Jensen? Finn Taylor, are you here to torture me or to protect me? As the plump lady ended her call, she heard Yvette Larson saying, Finn Taylor. No, Finn Taylor, that's your name, isn't it? You're from the Larson family. Don't tell me that you're Yvette Larson and that he's that useless matrilocal son-in-law, Finn Taylor. That can't be. I've bumped into celebrities here in San Francisco. The plump lady got more excited. Even the sales assistants' faces were plastered with wide smiles. Finn Taylor. This man in front of us is the same Finn Taylor who married into the Larson family to become San Francisco's biggest joke. How could a good-for-nothing matrilocal son-in-law dare to act as though he's a big shot and even dare to go against Javier Jensen? Does he not know his place? The plump lady was getting nastier with her words. Finn Taylor nearly exploded in anger, but he held it in. It isn't the right time for me to reveal my identity just yet. My younger brother Donovan Taylor is still missing, and Peregrine Hall is still in a mess. Little sister, who was so foolish as to have dared to bully you? Just then, a man with a beer belly strolled into the shop. Hello, Mr. Jensen. The sales assistants bowed to him. This was San Francisco Business Association's vice chairman, Javier Jensen. Brother, I'm sure you won't be able to guess who he is. Samantha Jensen pointed at Finn Taylor and laughed. It's him. His surname is Taylor. Guess who he is? Samantha Jensen was in no hurry to let her brother take revenge on her behalf. After all, she had finally met San Francisco's legendary celebrity, the matrilocal son-in-law Finn Taylor. It would be great fun. Taylor, I don't think there are any prominent families by the name of Taylor in San Francisco. Let me give you another hint. This is his wife. Her surname is Larson. The Larson family, oh, I know of one. Quince Larson sent me several invitations for a meal, but I've rejected all of them. They're just a second-tier family, they don't deserve to have a meal alone with me. Now that you've told me about the Larson family and that her husband is a tailor, I've thought of someone. It must be the most famous in all of San Francisco, matrilocal son-in-law, Finn Taylor. Samantha Jensen burst out into laughter, clutching her stomach as she bent over. Seeing his sister's actions, Javier immediately understood the situation. Don't tell me that I was right. Brother, you're a celebrity. You were the one who bullied my younger sister. You scum, I heard that you don't even dare to let out a fart at home. You've humiliated all men, but you dared to bully my younger sister here. As Javier Jensen said that, he directed a kick at Finn Taylor. Finn Taylor dodged it easily. He then glanced at the clock. It's been 5 minutes, they should be here. Just as that thought crossed his mind, a group of people walked into the shop. Oh, why are you here as well, Ms. Larson? Just as he was about to launch his second kick, Javier Jensen's leg stopped in midair. Then, he heard those words. That voice sounds familiar. He was dumbfounded as he looked over. That voice belongs to Hunter Sullivan. Hunter Sullivan, the head of New York's Sullivan family. Compared to Hunter Sullivan, Javier Jensen was nothing. Javier Jensen obviously dared not act presumptuously and quickly bowed to Hunter Sullivan, but the latter acted as though he hadn't seen the former and simply walked up to Yvette Larson. Mr. Sullivan, Finn Taylor suddenly remembered that his wife had told him that she wanted to meet Hunter Sullivan just a few hours earlier. It was just as well that he had made him come here to resolve this matter. As such, Finn Taylor had sent Hunter Sullivan his location while the others were distracted earlier. At that time, Hunter Sullivan had been in a meeting in the office. Nonetheless, he was so frightened that he immediately dropped everything he was doing and flew over. Yes, I'm out window shopping. I heard that this goldsmith shop is very famous. Do you like the jade here too? I quite like it. Yvette Larson was a little stumped and didn't know what to say. In the end, she mustered up her courage and said, Mr. Sullivan, I have a humble request. May I invite you to have a cup of coffee so that we can have a chat? Hunter Sullivan was stunned. Master Peregrine hadn't told me about this. But seeing that Master Peregrine hadn't refused, Hunter Sullivan agreed. He glanced at the watch on his wrist and pretended to look up at the ceiling, seemingly calculating the time. All right, half an hour. Master Peregrine followed his wife out to shop. If I spend too much time with his wife, I will definitely offend Master Peregrine. However, I can't afford to reject her either. As such, Hunter Sullivan decided that half an hour seemed reasonable. This was what he was calculating as he looked up at the ceiling. As Hunter Sullivan and Yvette Larson were chatting with each other, Javier Jensen looked on dazedly. He jogged over and tried to suck up to Hunter Sullivan. Hello, Mr. Sullivan, I'm Javier Jensen from San Francisco Business Association. It was only then that Hunter Sullivan noticed Javier Jensen's presence. Oh, Javier Jensen, I remember you. That was all he said before he turned back to resume his conversation with Yvette Larson. This caused a chill to run down Javier Jensen's spine. That woman can't possibly be Hunter Sullivan's friend, right? The San Francisco Business Association would definitely lambaste me if I were to offend Hunter Sullivan. Moreover, Hunter Sullivan can easily force me into poverty with just one word. Mr. Sullivan, is she your friend? Hunter Sullivan seemed a little impatient, and his eyebrows furrowed into a frown. Do you have something for me? Can't you see that I'm talking to Ms. Larson? Javier Jensen was completely flustered. He was now sure that Yvette Larson was Hunter Sullivan's friend. Not only can my sister not do anything right, but she has even stirred up trouble for me. Of all people she could have offended, she's offended Hunter Sullivan's friend. I'm done for this time. Javier Jensen snatched the jade piece that had caught Yvette Larson's eye from his sister's hand. Then, he bowed respectfully and stretched both hands out. Ms. Larson, I think that there's been a misunderstanding. I'm sorry that my sister was so insensible. I hope that you'll be magnanimous and forgive her. Hunter Sullivan frowned. What's going on? Do you need any help? Yvette Larson herself was stunned. She hadn't expected the other to be so frightened by her chatting with Hunter Sullivan. Nothing. It was just a small misunderstanding. Yvette Larson didn't want to trouble Hunter Sullivan. It was best not to owe anyone anything in the business world. It was easy for one to be embarrassed when one owed others too much. Javier Jensen, come down to Pacific Heights tonight. Hearing Hunter Sullivan's words, Javier Jensen felt cold sweat dripping down his forehead as regret filled his heart. Wasn't it just a piece of jade? Why did I have to speak up for her? I'm doomed this time. Javier Jensen held the jade piece out and said to the sales assistant, how much is this? I'll pay for it with my card. With that, he quickly whipped out his credit card. Brother, Why are you doing that? I was the one who spotted it first. Why should they get to have it? Besides, why are you paying for it? Samantha Jensen saw the jade piece slipping out of her hands. Not only will I not be able to get my hands on it, but my brother is even paying for someone else to have it. She was aggrieved and shouted out, "Brother, why are you afraid of them? Yvette Larson's family is just a second-tier family in San Francisco. Besides, she's from the third generation in her family and isn't even as favored as Quince Larson. As for him, he's the infamous and useless matrilocal son-in-law of San Francisco. Brother, why are you afraid of them? Do you really think they'll be able to do anything to us if we don't give them this jade piece?" Not only was Samantha Jensen ugly, but she was also brainless. Her brother Javier Jensen had already humbled himself to such an extent, yet she couldn't even read the room and had even said such a thing. Hunter Sullivan sneered. "All right, the Jensen family is so great. The Jensen family of San Francisco." With that, Hunter Sullivan turned to leave without paying any heed to Javier Jensen. Javier Jensen was so frightened that his face turned ghostly pale. He rushed up to his sister and landed a firm slap on her face. Brother has never laid a finger on me." For a moment, Samantha was stunned. However, her brother couldn't even be bothered with her. With a thud, he fell to the ground before Yvette Larson. "Ms. Larson, I'm begging you. You must help me put in a good word with Mr. Sullivan. I know I was wrong. I'm begging you." Thud, thud, thud. Javier Jensen repeatedly knocked his forehead against the ground, not stopping even though blood was now dripping from his forehead. Javier Jensen dared not stop, and now, his heart was full of hatred toward his own sister. "That plump woman can't do anything but stir up trouble for me. I can forget about all those troubles you created in the past, but can't you see that I'm already trying to do my best to make it up to her? Why are you still being so stubborn? Look at what you've done. Hunter Sullivan has blacklisted our Jensen family of San Francisco." Finn Taylor picked up that jade piece and dragged his wife out of the shop. As she walked out, Yvette Larson turned to glance at the pair. Seeing that Javier Jensen was still kneeling down on the ground, she turned to her spouse and asked in a low voice, "What shall we do? Shall we let Mr. Sullivan know about this? Is there a need for that?" Yvette Larson gave it some thought and eventually decided to let the matter go. She didn't know Hunter Sullivan well either. In fact, she had other matters to discuss with Hunter Sullivan. It would be detrimental for her if she were to offend Hunter Sullivan because of Javier Jensen. "Mr. Sullivan, I'll treat you to some coffee." Yvette Larson caught up with Hunter Sullivan. The trio then headed to a coffee shop within the shopping mall. "Mr. Sullivan, I'm very sorry about this. I'll cut to the chase." Yvette Larson then told him all about the problems the company was facing in regards to production, the substandard quality, and their inability to deliver the products on time. Hunter Sullivan furrowed his brows as he heard this. Eventually, he replied, "Forget it, it's our first time collaborating with each other. I won't put you on the spot, but don't blame me for fulfilling the contractual obligations if something goes wrong the next time." Although Hunter Sullivan said that, he thought in his heart, "Anyway, this company belongs to your husband. It's none of my business whether you pay or not." After sending Hunter Sullivan off, Yvette Larson looked at her husband, clearly annoyed. "Finn Taylor, what's wrong with you? How many times did I remind you not to be impulsive earlier? Look, we would have been doomed if Mr. Sullivan didn't happen to show up. So what if we didn't get that jade piece? We could have gotten something else for Clarine Landon. Do you know what would have happened if we had offended the Jensen family?" Finn Taylor bore the brunt of his wife's anger without rebuking her. "My wife is right no matter what she says. If my wife gets into any trouble, I will have to resolve it." Even after scolding her partner for several minutes, Yvette Larson didn't even get as much as a word out of him. Because it felt pointless to her, she gave up on lecturing her husband. She simply reminded him to watch his words if he wanted to protect her in the future. Of course, Finn Taylor agreed to everything. Whether his agreement translated into actions was another matter altogether. Ellipsis. The next morning, Finn Taylor got dressed and waited for his wife. Since she was still putting on makeup, he sat there obediently, watching her to sew. From time to time, Yvette Larson would turn around to see that her husband was staring at her. "Why are you staring at me? You're my wife. Who would I look at if I don't look at you? Don't people say that men like to play video games while waiting for their wives? Why aren't you playing video games?" "I don't like video games." "Then, you can do something else like watching animations." "I don't like animations either." "What do you like then?" "I like you." Yvette Larson blushed and hissed, "Don't joke around. Go read a book." Whatever his wife said was the law. As such, Finn Taylor obediently headed to the study to grab a book. But Yvette Larson saw that the book's title was, How to Coax Your Wife. At that moment, she felt like the most blissful woman in the world. Half an hour later, Yvette Larson was finally done with her makeup. The couple was finally ready to get out of the house. The Landon family wasn't very different from the Larson family and was also considered a second-tier family in San Francisco. Clarine Landon's birthday party was being held at the Grand Hyatt Hotel. This was a 5-star hotel in San Francisco that even Clarine Landon's family wouldn't usually visit. However, it was her birthday after all, and they couldn't afford to be miserly. As such, Clarine Landon's parents had arranged for the birthday party to be held here. When she saw her best friend walking over with Finn Taylor, she couldn't help but sigh. She had been madly infatuated with that violinist for a period of time, but that violinist had turned out to be none other than Finn Taylor. Unfortunately, Finn Taylor was her best friend's husband. There was no way she was going to snatch him away from her. As such, she could do nothing but sigh. "You're the birthday girl today. Why are you sighing? Look at what I got you." Yvette Larson handed her best friend the gift. The latter didn't worry about opening the present in front of her best friend and opened it right away. After all, such rules were between strangers. There was no need for such rules between her and Yvette Larson. The moment Clarine Landon saw the jade pendant, she let out a surprised yelp. "Wow, it's beautiful." "Oh right, Yvette, I remember you wearing a jade pendant too. Take it out, let's see which one looks better." Hearing her best friend's words, Yvette grunted. "Speaking about that, it's really strange, but I haven't been able to find that jade pendant." Finn Taylor cut in innocently. "What jade pendant? Why have I never seen it? Did you buy it for yourself?" Of course, he knew exactly which jade pendant they were talking about. He had recently gotten his subordinates to investigate that jade pendant. Since they had brought it up, Finn Taylor took the opportunity to ask how his wife had gotten it in the first place. "What, do you care about how much your wife paid for it because you don't have money to buy it for her?" "Let's go, Yvette, we'll ignore him." Unfortunately, Finn Taylor was interrupted by Clarine Landon. The latter dragged her best friend into the room. Finn Taylor watched as Clarine Landon walked off into the distance, resisting the urge to punch her. Just as he was about to walk in, an Audi A6 stopped right next to him, in front of the Grand Hyatt Hotel's lobby. A besuited young man in sunglasses then got out of the car. The young man didn't even spare Finn Taylor a glance and simply walked into the hotel after putting away his sunglasses. Finn Taylor took a look at the Audi A6 before walking into the hotel without saying a word. "Hello, Yvette, Clarine." This young man seemed to know Yvette Larson and Clarine Landon well. He immediately greeted them after entering. "Wow, Yosh Sanders, you're back." Clarine Landon was so shocked that she cupped her mouth. That young man named Yosh Sanders stretched out his arms to hug Clarine Landon. Then, he turned to look at Yvette Larson. He stretched out his arms yet again, but she took a few steps backward. I'm married. It's inappropriate." Yvette Larson ran her fingers through her hair. Just then, Finn Taylor walked over. He stood behind his wife, identifying himself. Yosh Sanders's gaze was cold as he scanned Finn Taylor up and down with hostility. "Yvette, I've been back for 3 days. My mom told me about your marriage. He must be that piece of trash, right? Why didn't you wait for me? Who in the Larson family would dare to bully you when I'm around?" Yosh Sanders shoved Finn Taylor aside, wanting to pull Yvette Larson over. However, she took a few more steps backward. "Yosh, it's Clarine's birthday today. I don't want to ruin this happy occasion. Please mind your behavior." With that, she put her hand in her husband's, interlocking their fingers. Yosh Sanders's pupils widened, his eyes full of murderous intent. Okay, I won't make trouble, but I'll make myself clear. I will definitely get back whatever I lost." With that, he turned to leave. Finn Taylor's gaze remained firmly on Yosh Sanders as he left. "Don't you want to know who he is?" Yvette Larson whispered in her husband's ear. Finn Taylor didn't reply to her. "If she's willing to tell me, I will listen. If she isn't willing to tell me, I have my own way of finding out anyway." Finn Taylor didn't think much of Yosh Sanders. His name is Yosh Sanders. He's the young master of San Francisco's Sanders family. The Sanders family is one of San Francisco's 4 most prominent families. In the past, the Larson family was just a vassal to the Sanders family. It was only after the late old master Hugo Larson returned that the Larson family rose up and broke free of the Sanders family. While the Larson family was still under the Sanders family's old master wanted me to marry Yosh Sanders to be his mistress. Yvette Larson explained her family's past to her husband. Clarine Landenho was standing by the side added, the late old master was a good man. The Landon family and some other families were initially vassals to the Sanders family as well. The Sanders family had the final say over who the children and grandchildren of our families would marry. It was the late old master who freed our families from the Sanders family. Although Yosh Sanders was mischievous as a young boy, it's true that he protected Yvette and me. But as he grew up under his family's protection, he grew terribly arrogant. Eventually, he left for Europe. I never expected him to come back, much less try to lay his hands on Yvette. Finn Taylor had gained a rough understanding of the situation from his wife and Clarine Landon. What they had described wasn't too different from what he already knew. The Larson family's late old master, Hugo Larson, was White Crane of Peregrine Hall. It was indeed true that his family had been a vassal to another family at that time. When he returned, he used Peregrine Hall's power to force that family to let the Larson family off. This meant that it had been the Sanders family who had held them captive. Hey, I hadn't expected another love rival to appear out of the blue. Finn Taylor stroked his nose. Why are you guys explaining all of this to me? Clarine Landon waved her hand. TCH, you're right. Why are we explaining it to you? She then brought her best friend to meet her parents. Hello, Uncle and Auntie. Clarine Landon's father was Kenneth Landon, who was rather well known in San Francisco. Her mother, Cassandra Campbell, was an impressive woman. Kenneth Landon was a rather indecisive person. As such, it was Cassandra Campbell who made most of the major decisions in the company. Although she didn't hold an official position in the company, everyone in Landon Corporation respected her. She had the domineering air of an empress. Spotting Finn Taylor behind Yvette Larson, Cassandra Campbell couldn't help but frown. Come, Yvette, have a seat. Cassandra Campbell was very warm and quickly sat Yvette Larson at the host's table, but she didn't even make a mention of Finn Taylor. Auntie, I came together with my husband. Of course, Yvette Larson naturally noticed Cassandra Campbell's attitude. It didn't matter that others treated her husband in this manner, but this was Cassandra Campbell they were talking about. This made Yvette Larson feel uncomfortable. No matter what, it's only because of our Larson family that your Landon family was able to become independent. What right do you have to look down on my husband? Clarine Landon thought that it was wrong too. It was weird for only one person to sit at the host's table when they had clearly come as a couple. Finn Taylor, sit next to Yvette. Cassandra Campbell's frown deepened. Hold on, I won't allow just any Tom, Dick, or Harry to take a seat at the host's table. Yvette, I watched you grow up. You're the most sensible girl I know. You're clearer than I am about the kind of person Finn Taylor is. He doesn't even have the right to sit at the host's table at the Larson family's events. Does he think he deserves to sit here now? Clarine Landon cut in. Mom, Kenneth Landon spoke up as well. It's supposed to be a joyful occasion today. It's such a rare opportunity for us to be gathered. Isn't it just a seat? He was trying to defuse the tense situation, but Cassandra Campbell refused to back down. It's easy for you to say that it's just a seat. Anyone with a good family background or anyone who has talent or abilities is welcome to sit at the host's table. As for anyone else, they'd better take a seat at the other tables for guests, it's only right. I'm already being kind by not chasing out a cheater like you, who snuck their way in. Yvette Larson could no longer stand Cassandra Campbell's words. She slammed the table. Auntie Cassandra, I respect you as an elder and didn't want to offend you, but Finn Taylor is my husband. If you continue scolding and insulting him, you will be insulting me too. Yvette Larson, don't spout nonsense. I'm not scolding you. I'm just lecturing you on behalf of your family's elders. Don't you know what day it is today? It's my daughter, your best friend, Clarine Landon's birthday. Why did you bring this piece of trash here? Do you think that the Landon family can't compare to the Larson family and that you can insult us like that? I heard that it was this piece of trash that angered your old master so much that he had to be hospitalized. It seems like you still haven't learned your lesson. Yvette Larson, if you chase this piece of trash out today, I'll treat it as though nothing happened. Otherwise, I'll have to reconsider your friendship with Clarine. Mom, what are you saying? The moment Cassandra Campbell said those words, Yvette Larson's face soured. Even Clarine Landon stepped forward to lecture her mom. It was true that she shouldn't have said that. What? Can't I teach her something as an elder? Besides, you should always watch the company you keep. I don't mind you being friends with Yvette Larson, but I'm really afraid that this piece of trash will ruin you, my precious daughter. Yvette Larson was fuming. In comparison to Finn Taylor, woe was the subject of humiliation. She was much more furious than he was. Auntie Cassandra, I'm leaving right now if that's what you really think. I won't allow anyone to bully my husband. With that, She picked up her spouse's hand and walked toward the exit. However, she was stopped by her best friend. Yvette, don't leave. It's my birthday today, stay on my account. Yvette Larson stopped in her tracks and looked at her best friend. Mom, why did you have to say such hurtful words? Cassandra Campbell sneered. Hurtful? Fine, I'll be straightforward. Yvette Larson, I went to visit the Sanders family yesterday and told them all about you and this piece of trash. Over the past 3 years, you were sensible and never let this piece of trash so much as touch you. Yosh Sanders values relationships. He still remembers the promise you made with him when you guys were young. Even though you're married, he's still willing to accept you as long as you get a divorce. Yvette Larson, I'm not the one forcing you, it's the Sanders family. You have 2 choices now. Firstly, you can chase this piece of trash away and sever all ties with him. Then, you'll become Yosh Sanders's mistress and prosper. In that case, the Landon family will remain good friends with you. Secondly, you can choose not to listen to my advice and stay with this piece of trash. You'll anger the Sanders family, and the Larson family won't be able to take the blow. Then, your family will fall into ruin. The fate of the whole Larson family lies in your hands. Of course, the Landon family will sever all ties with you to protect ourselves. Every word that came out of Cassandra Campbell's mouth was a stab to the heart. She had always shared a good relationship with Yvette Larson, but there was a reason for her sudden change in attitude. She was now laying the facts bare before Yvette Larson. It all depended on Yvette Larson's choice. In that instant, everyone's gazes landed on Yvette Larson. They were all waiting for her answer, an answer that seemed predetermined. I'd rather die a martyr than live a shameful life. Yvette Larson spat those words out confidently. Then, she strode toward the exit with her fingers interlocked with her husband's. Clarine Landon glared at her mother menacingly before chasing after them. Clarine Landon, if you dare to leave now, you'd better not come back. Cassandra Campbell scoffed. I had only spilled the truth and told Yvette Larson everything because I thought highly of her. But now that Yvette Larson would rather go all out, I have decided to sever all ties with the Larson family. Deciding to go against her mother's words, Clarine Landon ran out resolutely. Her mother's worldview was warped. All she valued was power. However, Clarine Landon wasn't like her mother. Clarine finally caught up with her best friend and her best friend's husband at the hotel's entrance. Why did you come out? I was afraid you'd disown me as your best friend. You silly girl, who else do I have but you? You'd better go back in. There are still other guests there. People might think that I did something to the birthday girl. Ellipsis. Seeing her daughter rush out, Cassandra Campbell slammed her fist down on the table in fury. What was the point in doing that? You and I both know just how close Clarine is to Yvette. Don't you think your daughter will hate you for her whole life if you force her to cut all ties with Yvette? Hate. She should be grateful to me. Grateful. Yes, grateful. The Larson family has already committed a huge crime by offending the Sanders family. It's just a matter of time before their entire family crumbles. Do you really think I'm only getting her to cut her ties with Yvette Larson? I'm using her to cut all ties between the Larson family and the Landon family. Yosh Sanders is back, and I'm afraid that the Sanders family is going to rise up again. The Larson family's old master is already dead. Do you think the Larson family is any match for the Sanders family now? Kenneth Landon put on a bitter smile. Oh, I'm finally seeing your true colors. Do you intend for our Landon family to become the Sanders family's dogs again? Dogs? Do you have to make it sound so nasty? You're clearer than I am about just how powerful the Sanders family is. If they give us just the slightest push, we'll be prosperous for sure. I don't care if you want to prosper, but do you really think you'll be able to sleep at night after using such methods? You're really a vicious woman. How could you even sell out your own daughter? You're right about that. It's true that Yosh Sanders likes Yvette Larson, but she won't accept him. Who will he turn to next to relieve that itch in his heart? Why you want to send my daughter into Yosh Sanders's bed? Kenneth Landon had to resist the urge to punch Cassandra Campbell. What do you mean, your daughter? Isn't she my daughter too? Forget it, I don't want to waste my breath on you. It's my bad fortune for having married such a dumb man. Ellipsis. In the end, Clarine Landon returned reluctantly. After all, there were too many guests at this party. She couldn't possibly leave without a word and offend everyone there. Why didn't you stay? I could have left. I'm used to it. Finn Taylor was slightly unused to his wife treating him so well. Hearing that he was already used to it, Yvette Larson felt a sour twinge in her heart. It's true that my husband has experienced such incidents too many times. Every single time, I stayed while others chased my husband away as though he was a jinx. Humans weren't robots without emotions. Yvette Larson knew that her spouse had to feel uneasy about it. Nonetheless, he had always chosen to leave silently without any complaints in view of the bigger picture. But Yvette Larson wasn't going to give in this time. The only reason was that it was Clarine Landon's birthday party. She didn't think that her husband would ever try to snatch her husband away, but Clarine Landon's infatuation with that violinist had served as a reminder to Yvette Larson that her husband had never been an unlikable piece of trash. It was just that he had never expressed his emotions or thoughts. "Come on, let's go home." As they were chatting, 7 to 8 cars drove up to them. There were race cars of all models. The doors opened, and dozens of young men wielding baseball bats got out of the cars. Finn Taylor could tell that these young men had malicious intentions. Fearful, Yvette Larson ducked behind her husband. Finn Taylor and Yvette Larson thought that these people who got out of the cars were the end of it. But in reality, this was just the beginning. Shortly after that, cars started driving toward them one after another. Mercedes-Benz and BMWs were the standard, while Bentleys and Ferraris were common. Last but not least, a Rolls-Royce Phantom appeared. The car rolled to a stop as dozens of besuited and sunglasses-wearing bodyguards stood on both sides of the Rolls-Royce Phantom. The doors were slowly pushed open, and out walked a man. He was dressed formally and walked with a steady gait. "Ms. Larson, Master Sanders welcomes you." Yvette Larson looked at the man with confusion in her eyes. Finn Taylor gripped his wife's hand tightly, providing her with some warmth and comfort. This man was William Sanders. To put it nicely, he was the adopted son of Grant Sanders, who was the Sanders family's head. To put it bluntly, he was just the Sanders family's dog. He used to be an orphan and was taken in by a Muay Thai master because of his viciousness and brutality. While fighting in an underground fight club, he caught Grant Sanders's eye and was adopted. From then on, he became Grant Sanders's right-hand man, getting personally involved in all of the family's underhanded dealings. Because he was physically strong and had the Sanders family's backing, nobody dared to get in his bad books. After hearing Cassandra Campbell's words, Yvette Larson knew that the Sanders family would definitely find her sooner or later. It was just that she hadn't expected them to show up so quickly. It was so quick that she wasn't the slightest bit prepared. "Finn Taylor, hurry up and go home. Bring Mom and Dad to meet Grandpa and tell him about this." Her grandpa, Joseph Larson, had the final say in the whole Larson family. Yvette Larson felt that she had to let him know about this since he was the only one who could save her. But Finn Taylor acted as though he hadn't heard his wife's words. He clutched her hand firmly with no intention of letting go. He knew that he couldn't leave her now. He was a man and her husband at that. He had to face others in the future with his broad shoulders. "Go on, it'll be too late if you don't leave now." Yvette Larson tried to struggle free from her spouse's grip, but it was too strong. She couldn't break free no matter how hard she tried. In the end, she gave up and got into the car with her husband. There were over 100 cars parked outside the hotel. Within the hotel, the Landon family was still hosting the birthday party. It would be a lie to say that the Landon family didn't know what was going on. Clarine Landon had wanted to leave the hotel several times, but she had been stopped by her mother. Ellipsis. Inside the car, Finn Taylor could obviously feel the sweat on his wife's palm. This was fear that came from the bottom of her soul. It was because the Sanders family was too scary. The Larson family and Landon family were considered prominent families, but who would have guessed that these families used to be mere vassals of the Sanders family? In that case, who knew how much worse the Sanders family could get? The Sanders family's head, Grant Sanders, was a true piece of work. For his own benefits, he was capable of doing just about anything. "Don't worry, I'm here." Yvette Larson looked at Finn Taylor and forced a smile out. At that moment, she felt that her tense heart had finally relaxed a little. It seemed as though her husband's presence was a comfort to her. Even without Finn Taylor letting them know, the Larson family eventually found out about this incident. While Cassandra Campbell was terribly unreasonable, Clarine Landon was not. Since her mother refused to let her go, she had no other choice. As such, she made a call to Linda James and told her all that had happened. Upon hearing Clarine Landon's words, Linda James collapsed on the floor. Not knowing what had happened, Frances Larson asked, "What's wrong?" "Let's go. Our daughter is in trouble. We have to find the old master." "What happened?" "Yosh Sanders is back. The Sanders family took our daughter." Frances Larson felt his heart tense up, and unease coursed throughout his whole body. It seems like the rumor is real. The Sanders family is trying to build up their power. Who cares about the rumor? We have to meet the old master. Very quickly, the couple arrived at the old master's residence. Unfortunately, The old master was still sleeping. No matter how much they said, Quince Larson refused to let the couple in. But knowing that this was an exceptional situation, Francis Larson and his wife couldn't be bothered and simply shoved Quince Larson aside and rushed into the old master Joseph Larson's bedroom. Joseph Larson opened his eyes and flared up when he saw Francis Larson and his wife rushing in. "Francis Larson, what are you doing? I just kicked Quince Larson from his position and let Yvette helm the company. Are you trying to drive me to my death? Do you really think you'll be in charge of the Larson family once I'm not around?" "Dad, I don't mean to do that. It's just that the situation is really urgent. The lives of the Larson family are at stake here, so I didn't have a choice." Just then, Quince Larson rushed in, and his lips curled up. "Hee, why don't you speak louder? The lives of the Larson family? Do you mean someone from your family died? Quince Larson, you'd better watch your words. The Larson family should remain united now. If we waver and fall, your family won't do well either." The old master, Joseph Larson, looked at Francis Larson. He understood his eldest son well. If nothing had happened, he would never say such a thing. "It seems like trouble has indeed broken out. Francis, what happened?" "Dad, Yosh Sanders is back in the country. The Sanders family kidnapped Yvette." By the side, Quince Larson sneered. "I thought it was a major problem. It's just your family's problem. Why did you say that the whole Larson family was at stake?" "Shut up." Quince Larson was a little stunned by that furious roar. His grandpa, Joseph Larson, had shouted at him. His grandpa was standing on the side of Yvette Larson's family. "Go tell your second and third brothers, as well as Eleanor Larson and Quinn Larson to gather for a meeting." Within 10 minutes, Franklin Larson, Frederick Larson, Eleanor Larson, and Quinn Larson had arrived. Apart from the eldest granddaughter, Yvette Larson, who had been kidnapped, and the late Freddie Larson, all the Larson family members were present at this meeting. Joseph Larson walked down to see the Larson family's younger generations with tears in their eyes. "You're all here. I have something to tell all of you. This concerns the Larson family's survival, so you'd better listen carefully." Everyone present understood the seriousness of this matter through Joseph Larson's tone, and nobody even dared to blink their eyes. "Have a seat since you are all ready. Francis Larson, you should know best about this. Why don't you tell everyone about the Sanders family's shocking secret?" The Sanders family's shocking secret. All eyes shot toward Francis Larson. What happened to the Sanders family? Along the way, they had already learned that Yvette Larson had been captured by the Sanders family. But what does that have to do with the Sanders family's shocking secret? "I won't talk about my daughter. I'll cut to the chase and talk about the Sanders family. 3 months ago, the Sanders family's head Grant Sanders was diagnosed with end-stage lung cancer. It's clear that Yosh Sanders is back to inherit the family business, otherwise, he should have stayed on to finish his last year of college." The members of the younger generation nodded. So this is the Sanders family's shocking secret. But how does this have anything to do with the Larson family's survival? Is Francis Larson trying to scare us just to save his own daughter? Although nobody dared to say a thing, their gazes made their thoughts clear as day. "I know what you're thinking. All I can say is that you're all fools. Once Grant Sanders passes away, the positions of San Francisco's 4 most prominent families will definitely be shaken. Moreover, Yosh Sanders is young. How will he establish himself after taking the helm of such an important family like the Sanders family? He'll definitely need a chance to show off his prowess. It's just that I never expected him to try to do so through the Larson family. The Larson family freed itself from the Sanders family, and my daughter Yvette was betrothed to him as a mistress. Now, he's using both of these things against us and forcing us to listen to him. If we do so, the late old master's years of efforts will have been in vain, and our Larson family will never be able to make a name for ourselves again. On the other hand, if we choose not to listen to him, the Sanders family will make it difficult for us to survive in the business world. Then, we'll have no way out either. The Larson family is already being threatened to such an extent, yet none of you have felt it." Francis Larson's words stunned the whole Larson family and made them change their minds about him. In their minds, Francis Larson was a weak, timid, and useless man who was a slave to his wife. That was why their grandpa preferred the Larson family's second family even though his family was the eldest. But this time, he hit the bullseye with his analysis. Everything he said sounded reasonable and even touched their hearts. This was his true nature. His past self had been nothing more than an act. Even the old master, Joseph Larson, took a second glance at his eldest son. It turns out that he's such an opinionated man. All right, since we're all clear about the situation now, let's discuss our views and plans. Ellipsis. In the end, Yvette Larson arrived at the Sanders family's house with her husband. The Sanders family owned acres of land, and the main building was situated right in the middle of that plot of land. Rumor had it that the building alone cost $20 million. William Sanders led Finn Taylor and Yvette Larson in alone. He had ordered everyone else to back down. The trio walked up the stairs, arriving at a pavilion on the west side of the estate. As they walked through the corridor, Finn Taylor glanced around him. These artificial mountains and ponds are placed in very interesting configurations. It's as though a master had been consulted on this matter. It seems obvious as to why the Sanders family is still able to maintain their position in society. Within the pavilion, two men were playing chess. Finn Taylor already recognized one of them, Yosh Sanders. In front of Yosh Sanders sat a mature, middle-aged man. Without even asking about him, Finn Taylor guessed his identity. That would probably be the Sanders family's head, Grant Sanders. Master Sanders, she's here. Grant Sanders turned slowly, and his gaze landed on Finn Taylor. That's interesting. I didn't expect you to be here either. Uncle Sanders, you can talk to me if you have anything you want to tell me. Finn Taylor doesn't know anything. Along the way, Yvette Larson had already made her intentions known to her husband. Once they arrived at the Sanders family's house, he was to remain silent and not say a word. She would be the one speaking for both of them. Yvette, don't be nervous. I only got William to bring you over because I missed you. Did Grant scare you? With that, Grant Sanders's expression turned into one of anger. William Sanders, look at how much you've scared Yvette. With a thud, William Sanders immediately kneeled down on the ground. Master, please forgive me. I deserve to die. Grant Sanders ignored him, letting him kneel on the ground. Not only did this not make Yvette Larson feel relaxed, but it even caused her to feel more tense. Yvette, I heard that you haven't had a good life in the past few years because you got married to a martialarts son-in-law. Sigh, I like you very much. I always wanted you to be my daughter-in-law. It's such a pity that fate makes a fool of all of us. This must be that legendary Finn Taylor. Grant Sanders wagged his finger at Finn Taylor. Uncle Sanders, our relationship is fine. Thank you for your concern. The more concerned Grant Sanders was, the more frightened Yvette Larson was. Young man, do you know how to play chess? Shall we have a game? Grant Sanders wasn't asking a question. Instead, he was giving an order. As for Yosh Sanders, he had already stood up to give way to Finn Taylor. As though she was dealing with an enemy, Yvette Larson quickly stood in front of her husband. Uncle Sanders, he's a piece of trash. Doesn't the whole of San Francisco say that? Do you think he'd know how to play chess? Grant Sanders smiled and shook his head. Sometimes, what others say may not always be true. It's best to see it yourself. Only when you see it will you know what the truth is. Come on, young man. Have a round with me, it doesn't matter even if you lose. Yvette Larson shook her head, advising her husband not to do so. To her surprise, Finn Taylor let go of her hand. Then, he sat down in front of Grant Sanders. Good, 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 Grant Sanders affirmed. Each word was like a giant bell ringing within Yvette Larson's heart. She was scared stiff. It was a game of chess. Nonetheless, the game began. Grant Sanders and Finn Taylor were head-to-head on the chessboard. Not bad, the young man's skills are decent. Yvette, your husband isn't a piece of trash. Look, he can play chess at the very least. Don't you think he's good? Yvette Larson had to suppress the urge to lash out at her husband. She had to resist the urge to punch him as well. Tell me, are you dumb? Why did you insist on playing this game of chess? Do you think we'll get to leave if you anger Grant Sanders? Uncle Sanders, I think he only knows the basics. He won't be able to win, that's for sure. Haha, Yvette, I think you're wrong. He's playing a very interesting strategy. Young man, play well. If you win, I'll let you guys leave. That last sentence was filled with murderous intent. Then, the pavilion fell into pin-drop silence. Neither Finn Taylor nor Grant Sanders was going easy on the other. One move and then another. The sounds of the chess pieces moving sounded like sonorous thunder in the sky. Yvette Larson, Yosh Sanders, and William Sanders had their eyes glued to the chessboard. Even the audience was on edge while watching the game between Grant Sanders and Finn Taylor. Every move of the chess pieces felt like a stab to Yvette Larson's heart. Although Yvette Larson knew nothing about chess, she could tell that Grant Sanders was an experienced player who was calm and collected and made his moves quickly. This meant that victory was surely in his hands. Yvette Larson couldn't wrap her head around why her husband had even agreed to this contest in the first place. Initially, it was much easier to settle the matter. I would have simply coaxed them at best or begged them at worst. From Grant Sanders's attitude, I could tell that he wasn't really trying to put me on the spot. But now, he is only going to let us leave if my husband wins. This means that we will surely remain captives here if my husband were to lose. As a respected figure, Grant Sanders will definitely keep his word. Otherwise, how would he face others in the future? The game of chess was still ongoing. Nearly all the chess pieces had been taken off the chessboard. The ones that were still left on the board were mostly Grant Sanders's. It seemed like Finn Taylor had no way of making a comeback. Plunk. Grant Sanders made his last move. You lost. Grant Sanders picked up his teacup and took a sip of tea confidently. The moment Yvette Larson heard those words, she shut her eyes. She knew that this was the end for both her and her husband. This chess game could very well have determined our fates. By the side, Yosh Sanders and William Sanders were both sneering. But Finn Taylor seemed not to have heard Grant Sanders. He reached forward and made his move. Then, everyone's gazes fell. With that move, it seemed like the tables had been turned. It was checkmate. Grant Sanders's chess pieces had all been surrounded. He had absolutely no way of moving his pieces around. You lost. Finn Taylor said the exact same words. There was an awkward pause. Grant Sanders's hand trembled as he tried to steady himself. He placed the teacup down and looked at Finn Taylor. Interesting, how interesting. Leave then. Grant Sanders waved them away as Finn Taylor stood up and took his wife's hand. Yvette Larson was still in a daze and hadn't returned from her trance. Nonetheless, she politely bade him goodbye. Goodbye, Uncle Sanders. They then rushed off. William Sanders crawled up to Grant Sanders, making a neck-slicing gesture. The latter shook his head, not wanting William Sanders to silence them. After leaving the Sanders family's house, Yvette Larson quickly hailed a cab back to the Larson family's residence. She had to personally tell her grandpa about what had happened. But when the couple arrived at the Larson family's residence, she realized that something was amiss. There was not a single soul in the house, not even the family elders. Thinking of only one possibility, she rushed over to the Larson family's meeting room with her spouse. Familiar faces greeted her as she pushed the door open. Her grandpa, Joseph Larson, her father, Francis Larson, her mother, Linda James, Franklin Larson, Frederick Larson, Quince Larson, Eleanor Larson, and Quinn Larson. The entire Larson family was present. The moment Yvette Larson pushed the door open, everyone's gazes fell on her. Francis Larson and Linda James were the first to react. They rushed over, and Linda James grabbed her daughter's hand. My poor daughter, are you feeling all right? Yvette Larson shook her head. I'm fine thanks to Finn Taylor. Linda James ignored the second part of her sentence and pulled her daughter over to Joseph Larson. Dad, Yvette is back. Joseph Larson nodded. That's good. It's good that you're back. Quince Larson and Eleanor Larson shared a knowing glance that was full of regret. Up until now, they still couldn't understand why the Larson family's fate was always bound together, be it for better or for worse. The heavens are really blind since Yvette Larson hasn't been killed this time. Eleanor Larson put on a concerned expression and asked, Yvette, did the Sanders family do anything to you? Why don't you tell us how you managed to come back? All eyes were on Yvette Larson because of that question. This was the question in everyone else's mind as well. They were all curious about what Yvette Larson had experienced at the Sanders family's residence. Yvette Larson was in a dilemma about how to answer this question. What's wrong, Yvette? Do you have something to hide? Don't tell me that you betrayed us just so you could escape. To think that we were all discussing how to save you. Eleanor Larson was no different from a shrew. She immediately tried to slander her cousin once she realized that the latter wasn't replying to her. Eleanor Larson, you'd better not spout nonsense. Spout nonsense. You know best what you've done. The old master Joseph Larson nearly fainted from anger upon seeing his grandchildren arguing with each other so intensely. He slammed his fist on the table. All right, all of you, shut up. Yvette, tell us what happened at the Sanders family's residence. Eleanor Larson had wanted to go on, but Quince Larson tugged at her. Finally, she relented. Grandpa, after the Sanders family kidnapped Finn Taylor and me, Grant Sanders asked about my marriage. He then challenged Finn Taylor to a game of chess and said that he would let us go if my husband won. My husband won in the end, and we were allowed to leave. Kneel down. The old master, Joseph Larson, only said 2 words after hearing Yvette Larson. His tone was stern and domineering. Yvette Larson was slightly frightened and was just about to kneel down when her husband stopped her. Thud. Finn Taylor kneeled down on the ground. In the Larson family, he was nothing but a matrilocal son-in-law that was looked down on. However, he would never let anyone bully his wife. So you know how to kneel as well. I thought that you'd gotten so courageous that nothing mattered anymore. Who allowed you to win that game of chess? Yvette Larson was in disbelief. How could Grandpa say that? She quickly explained, Grandpa, I was only able to come back because Finn Taylor won. If he had lost, I might have been kept as a prisoner in the Sanders family's residence forever. So what? Joseph Larson's words were like a bolt out of the blue to Yvette Larson. Grandpa, what do you mean? What do I mean? I should be the one asking you guys what you mean. So what if you had lost that game of chess? At the very most, you'd have been kept in the Sanders family's residence. In the end, you might have even become Yosh Sanders's mistress. But now that you've won and returned, do you know how much trouble you've brought upon the Larson family? Finn Taylor, how dare you win against Grant Sanders? Do you think you're worthy of winning? You're a jinx. You're going to kill the whole Larson family. Yvette Larson could hardly believe her ears. I am Joseph Larson's granddaughter, his biological granddaughter. How can he not even care about my survival and even spout such words? Grandpa, don't you think you're going overboard with your words? Quince Larson slammed the table. Overboard? Yvette Larson, watch how you're speaking to Grandpa. Was Grandpa wrong about what he said? From the very beginning, it was your family who created this trouble for the Larson family. Do you know how many families in San Francisco look down on us because you married this piece of trash? Yvette Larson, you were clearly betrothed to Yosh Sanders, but you chose to marry someone else. Don't you think it's your fault that you offended the Sanders family and dragged our family down with you? Yvette Larson wanted to laugh. Why didn't you say so 3 years ago, Quince Larson? 3 years ago, he should have told the late old master Hugo Larson exactly what he had just said. Perhaps, the late old master would have beaten him to death. He also said that I had a marriage contract with Yosh Sanders. Can a casual and shameless request from the Sanders family's old master for me to be Yosh Sanders's mistress count as a marriage contract as well? Great, this is great. Yvette Larson dragged her husband up from the floor and was prepared to leave. These so-called family members only make my heart run cold. The moment Yvette Larson walked out of the room with her husband, Quince Larson's finger nearly poked Francis Larson's face. Uncle, take a good look. This is your daughter. Does she even have Grandpa in her heart? She's still just a deputy CEO helping Grandpa manage the company, but she's already eager to force Grandpa out of his position to take his place. It's my fault that I was useless and made a mistake, but don't forget that I'm not the only male in the third generation. Even if Grandpa doesn't hand the company over to me, he'll give it to Quinn Larson. Your family had better not dream of ever owning it. Eleanor Larson glanced at Quinn Larson. He immediately kneeled before Joseph Larson. Grandpa, I'm all grown up now. I want to gain some experience. Quinn Larson was still young, only 18 years old. Logically speaking, there was no way the reins of the company would be handed to him, but he had somehow become a hot choice now. Nonetheless, the cautious Joseph Larson didn't dare to make such a decision. Grandpa, I'm sorry for being useless and making some foolish mistakes in the past. If Quinn becomes the company's CEO, I'm willing to go all out to assist him. Quince Larson knew full well that his grandpa loved him the most. As such, he quickly added fuel to the fire. Just as expected, Joseph Larson grew slightly hesitant. Grandpa, I've been in discussions with the head of Seattle's Scott family, Alexander Scott. I think that there's a high probability that it'll be successful. If we score that deal, we won't have to rely on Yvette Larson's project anymore, added Eleanor Larson. Joseph Larson was delighted by what he was hearing, and he slammed his fist onto the table. Good, I'm really happy to see all three families united and working together. Three families united. There was clearly something else between Joseph Larson's words. Francis Larson's expression was terribly sour. On the surface, father seems to be praising the other three families. But in reality, he's clearly lashing out at me for not matching up to the Larson family's other three branches. Dad, the Sanders family has their sights set on the Larson family now. You must be careful before making any decisions, Francis Larson finally advised. But what he received in return was a dressing down from the old master. Francis Larson, I'm still well and alive. Why is your family in such a hurry to chase me out from my position? Fine, since that's the case, I think I have no choice but to name Quinn Larson as the CEO. Quinn Larson repeatedly kowtowed, thanking his grandpa profusely. Quince Larson and Eleanor Larson shared a meaningful glance. They could see victory headed their way. Unfortunately, they didn't share the same thoughts. What Quince Larson was thinking about was how he would eventually hold the power, be it in the family or in the office. Quinn Larson would be a puppet CEO. After all, Quinn was still such a young kid. As such, His grandpa naming Quinn Larson as the CEO was no different from handing the power back to him. As for Eleanor Larson, that wasn't what she was thinking about. Earlier, she had already told her grandpa that she would sign a deal with the Scott family. That hadn't been a lie. In fact, she had gotten it in exchange for her body. Since Yvette Larson could become the company's head with the Sullivan family's project, there's no reason I can't do the same. When the time comes, I will be in charge of the most important project in the Larson Corporation to date. Anyway, the new CEO is just a young brat. Would my Larson family relatives rather listen to me or to a young brat? No matter what Quince Larson or Eleanor Larson thought, neither of them had expected Quinn Larson was still kneeling on the ground to have his own ideas as well. He had lost a young age and had been known as the Larson family's young master since then. However, he had had a miserable childhood. Thankfully, he found good elder siblings in Quince and Eleanor Larson, who had always been helping and protecting him. But that also meant that they always stole his credit whenever he had any achievements. He had endured everything, and today, he was finally seeing the fruits of his labor. He was going to be the Larson Corporation's CEO. All I have to do is endure it for a while longer until Grandpa passes on. I will then have the highest position in the Larson Corporation. My elder brother and elder sister have always thought me a fool, but they would never in a million years have guessed that I have already gathered evidence of their crimes behind their backs. Once Grandpa dies, I will expose them all. Then, nobody in the Larson family will be able to fight with me over the position of family head. Even in the face of such an impressive figure like the Sanders family, the Larson family was still fighting internally. Frances Larson and Linda James returned home dejectedly. The way Frances Larson saw it, the Larson family was completely doomed. Ellipsis. After leaving the Larson family's residence, Yvette Larson and Finn Taylor headed for the beach. Facing the sea, Yvette Larson felt her tense heart finally relax. She yelled out at the sea, "Arg!" Finn Taylor simply sat on the beach, watching his wife. Just then, her phone rang. Yvette picked up the phone, but the moment she heard the caller on the other end, her face turned ghostly pale. "What's wrong? Let's go. Hurry up," Mom called. Mom and Dad got into a car accident. Car accident. When Finn Taylor heard those two words, he fell into a frenzy as well. Could something really have happened to the couple? Yvette Larson has just been hit with her family's betrayal. What if her parents also pass away from an accident? Finn Taylor couldn't imagine how desperate his wife had to be. According to Linda James's description, Finn Taylor and Yvette Larson quickly arrived at the site of the accident. But what they saw was Linda James arguing with a middle-aged woman. "Do you even know how to drive? Look, you almost killed us." Linda James fiercely insisted that the other party intended to run into them and kill them. "Can you be more reasonable? I was driving perfectly well, but you guys ran a red light. Besides, I didn't even hit you. Why do you keep trying to extort money from me? Are you a fraud, or is this a staged accident?" "What are you saying? Fraud? Staged accident? How can you say that you didn't hit us? Can't you see that my husband is lying there on the ground and can't move? You're so ridiculous. Both of us know perfectly well why he's lying there. He was fine just now, but you told him to lie there." "I told him to lie there. What proof do you have? Do you have a dashcam?" "Right, you're only so arrogant and bold because you saw that I didn't have a dashcam. If I had one, I'd have punched you a long time ago." "Punch us? Wow, you even want to hit us now. You're really a bitch." Yvette Larson initially wanted to resolve the matter, but she felt utterly humiliated after overhearing the conversation. The situation was clear as day. Linda James and Frances Larson had run a red light, nearly causing the female driver to knock into them. But she had not, in fact, hit them. Because she had seen that the other party had no dashcam, Linda James decided to extort a sum of money from the other party by pretending that her husband had been injured. "Mom, can you stop embarrassing yourself?" Yvette Larson huffed as she tried to stop her mother. However, Linda James refused to budge. She had held it in for long enough at the Larson family's residence today. "The old master now even wants to chase us out of the family. Our lives are surely going to get tougher from now on." Just now, Linda James had already clearly seen that the other party had no dashcam or any form of recording device in her car. "You were the one who hit me. You'll have to pay me no matter what." "Embarrassing myself. She nearly killed your parents, and you're not even helping us. How could you be blaming us for this? Why did I give birth to a daughter like you?" Linda James hated her daughter for going against her. "Fine. I'll leave then. You can settle this yourself." With that, Yvette Larson stomped off furiously. Finn Taylor was just about to leave with her when Linda James shouted, "Stop right there. Why are you leaving? Stay here and settle this for me." He was annoyed but had no other choice. After all, he was her son-in-law, not her daughter. Her daughter could leave, but as a son-in-law, he had to help his mother-in-law out before leaving. Besides, he wasn't just an average son-in-law, he was a matrilocal son-in-law. Finn Taylor walked up to his father-in-law, and he kneeled down. "Dad, you're the Larson family's eldest son. I know Grandpa has always looked down on you, but you can't look down on yourself too. Are you really going to continue with this act?" Francis Larson's gaze wavered, and he hesitated as he glanced at his wife. "I'll help you up, Dad." In the end, Francis Larson made his decision and stood up. "That's right, I can't degrade myself. Linda James, I still want my dignity even if you don't want yours." With that, Francis Larson turned to leave. Now that even her husband had left, Linda James's plot was sure to fail. She vented all her anger toward Finn Taylor. "I knew it, I didn't hit you. Now that he's gone, I can leave, can't I?" Linda James had gone all out today. Without Francis Larson around, she simply lay herself down on the ground and even viciously hit the car with her head several times. That female driver was speechless. Finn Taylor waved her off. "Go on, leave this to me." She looked at Finn Taylor and asked hesitantly, "Are you sure you won't sue me for a hit and run?" No, didn't you say that there aren't any CCTVs around? Even if I say that you ran away, I wouldn't be able to find you." The female driver gave it some thought and felt that it did indeed make sense. As such, she hurried into her car and sped off. With that, only Finn Taylor and Linda James were left. Linda James flopped onto the ground and started throwing a tantrum. "You're such a piece of work, Finn Taylor. Look at what you've done. You've dumped my money down the drain. I could have gotten at least $15,000 from her. Return me my money. Return me my $15,000. Finn Taylor's head was starting to hurt from Linda James's tantrum. All right, just take it that I owe you $15,000. The moment she heard that, Linda James stood back up cheerfully. "No, a verbal agreement won't cut it. Let's go, we'll go home. You have to write me an IOU." Finn Taylor was rendered speechless by his mother-in-law's shamelessness. By the time they arrived home, Yvette Larson and Francis Larson were already home. Once she arrived home, Linda James started searching through all her drawers and cabinets. Francis Larson was confused. What is she up to now? "Francis, do you know where we keep our paper and pens?" "What do you need that for?" Francis Larson replied. He was curious about what his wife was going to do with them. Even Yvette Larson, who was still in her room, was curious about what her mother was trying to do. "I'm getting Finn Taylor to write me an IOU. IOU? Why would he need to write one?" It wasn't just Yvette Larson that was confused. Even Francis Larson was bewildered. "He let that woman go. I didn't get any money from her, so he'll have to give me whatever I would have gotten from her." Linda James's answer had the father-daughter duo wondering if their ears were playing tricks on them. What kind of answer is this? We were clearly at fault, but Finn Taylor stepped in and helped to protect our family's reputation. But now, Finn Taylor is the one who owes Linda James money. "Mom, can you knock it off? Why would you write an IOU? He won't be allowed to eat if he doesn't write it. I'll deduct the money from his meal allowance then." Francis Larson, Yvette Larson, both Francis Larson and his daughter were left speechless. "Mom, I've already written the IOU. Take this." As the trio was still debating the matter, Finn Taylor walked in with a piece of paper in his hands and handed it to his mother-in-law. She took a look at it. It was clearly written that Finn Taylor owed Linda James $15,000. Linda James was finally satisfied, and she kept the IOU safely. Just then, Finn Taylor's phone buzzed. It was a text message from Wampus. He put his phone away and said to his wife, "Yvette, I have something to do. I'll be out for a while and may come back a little later tonight." "Hold on." Yvette Larson rushed down from upstairs and handed an unopened bottle of beverage to him. "Stay safe. Wait for next part."